Was geht, Leute? Wir sind am Start. Ich bin gerade nach Hause gekommen, habe noch ein gutes Telefonat gehabt und habe gesehen, dass der Tupac-Prozess live gestreamt wird, Leute. Tatsächlich.
Okay, we're on record in State vs. Davis, C337407. We've gotten through some of our technical issues. Anything else we need to address before bringing in the jury?
Also zum Glück haben wir alles schön hier. Ne? Das hat schon hier mehrere Stunden begonnen. Wir gucken jetzt hier, was am interessantesten ist, Leute. Kommt rein, Leute, kommt rein. Kommt rein! Wer hätte gedacht, dass es live ausgestrahlt wird, Leute? Wer hätte das gedacht? Sag mal bitte. Hier wird übrigens das nochmal in klein gezeigt, ne? Da mache ich mich hin. Da haben wir den Kifidi, liebe Leute, da haben wir den. Es ist sehr, sehr spät, ich weiß. Ich hoffe, dass noch einige von euch am Start sind. Und nicht alle schlafen. So, schauen wir mal, ob ich überhaupt live bin auf Twitch auch. Ob die Technik funktioniert. Ja, tatsächlich funktioniert alles super. So, wir haben viel Zeit, Leute. Es geht eine Weile. Ich habe den Chat auch neben mir. Wenn ihr Fragen habt, keine Ahnung, irgendwas besprechen wollt, ich bin am Start, Leute. Brokkoli.
You may, did the party stipulate to the presence of the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Hopefully you were able to get everything situated over the long weekend, and we look forward to proceeding with trial. Before we get started, we do need to have you sworn, so if I could have you all stand and raise your right hand, we'll proceed with that.
You and each of you do solemnly swear that you will well and truly try the case at issue and a true verdict render according to the evidence, so help you God? Yes. Thank you. You may be seated.
All right. Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, we're going to turn to opening statements. Mr. Plall, are you ready to give your opening statement at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning. On September 7th, 1996, Tupac Shakur came to Las Vegas to attend a Mike Tyson fight. After the fight, Tupac, along with Suge Knight, Trayvon Lane, and other people that were with that group, ran into a person named Orlando Anderson. And Orlando Anderson
Was geht,
is
Andrea?
the defendant's nephew. And when they encountered Orlando Anderson sitting by himself, they attacked him. And that attack was captured on video. Then, a few hours later, Tupac Shakur
Das ist live, ja.
Suge Knight drive down Flamingo Road to Club 662, where Tupac is scheduled to perform a concert. Then 2.5 hours later, after Tupac and Suge engaged in the beating of Orlando Anderson, they are gunned down. Tupac is gunned down in a drive-by shooting from a white Cadillac in an act of revenge. During those 2.5 hours, you will
Ich glaube, man muss hier nicht viel übersetzen oder so, oder? Das versteht jeder.
the retribution for the beating of his beloved nephew. Now, let's be clear. Dwayne Davis did not pull the trigger. But what he did do was plan the retaliation for the beating of his nephew. You will learn that Dwayne Davis got the gun. You will learn that he got into a white Cadillac. You will learn
Was
when
geht,
the
was geht, Leute?
opportunity presented itself for retribution, Dwayne Davis made sure that the shooters were armed and ready to execute their revenge. And remarkably, you will learn that from Dwayne Davis himself. But to understand what happened on September 7th, 1996, on the streets of Las Vegas, we need to go about 275 miles west to the city of Compton.
Guten Abend, guten Abend.
What you'll learn is that Compton is about 10 square miles. But in the mid-1990s, those 10
Na, Leon,
square
Dankeschön.
miles were occupied by over 30 gangs.
Dankeschön für 2,49. Vielen, vielen Dank für deinen Support. Kuss, Kuss, Kuss. Dankeschön für den Riesensupport von euch allen.
Mob Piru and the Southside Compton groups. Let's talk a little bit about the Mob Piru. The Mob Piru is a group that associated with the color red. And you'll hear that Suge
Kaffeetante schreibt, mein Englisch ist nicht so gut. Im Wesentlichen wird hier die ganze Geschichte nur rekonstruiert bzw. wieder erklärt quasi, dass die sich in verschiedenen Zeiten, wo die sich befunden haben, dass sie miteinander Streit hatten und so weiter und so fort. Deswegen ist es eher nur gerade eine Wiederholung von dem von der Staatsanwaltschaft hier quasi. Die erklären das einfach nochmal, den Tathergang. Die rekonstruieren alles einfach nur simpel. Also selbst wenn man nur die Bilder sieht, kann man schon sehr viel verstehen eigentlich. Ist nichts Neues. Alles verstehe ich auch nicht zu 100%, ne? Nur mal so am Rande. Bin auch nicht irgendwie der Experte jetzt hier in Englisch oder so.
One of the most successful record labels around. They had artists such as Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, and of course, Tupac Shakur.
Hey, mir macht es Spaß, hier mit euch live zu sein. Wirklich. Mir macht es Spaß, euch zu lesen und Zeit zu verbringen.
He had just released All Eyes on Me, a double album that was met with huge success. Additionally, Tupac Shakur was a movie star, having appeared in a number of movies in critically acclaimed roles. He has at times been referred to as an icon, but for the purposes of
Dankeschön für die Kanalmitgliedschaft, Krümelmonster. Willkommen, willkommen. Schöner Name. Übrigens, gell, ich finde es ganz gut, dass hier nochmal ganz klar aufgezeigt wird, dass der Tupac hier der Superstar ist. Dass die anderen eigentlich nur, Leute waren, die dabei waren. Ob es ein Suge Knight ist oder jetzt hier, ne? Der Kandidat. Ja, der war ein Crip-Leader, ja.
Suge Knight rose to prominence in his neighborhood due to the money that he was bringing in through the music industry. Dwayne Davis rose to prominence in his neighborhood because he was a very successful, large-scale drug trafficker. And you will learn that that is how one moves up in the world he hangs.
Ihr müsst euch mal überlegen, die haben einfach 2 Leben genommen und zerstört. Von Tupac Shakur und von Biggie Smalls.
Orlando Baby Wayne Anderson was his nephew and also a highly respected member.
Und warum ist der Neffe gestorben? Weiß das jemand?
Now,
Wie er gestorben ist, der angeblich Tupac erschossen hat?
You're going to hear another name. Eric Zip Martin. Now, Eric Zip Martin is not a member of the Southside Compton Crips. In fact, he's based out of New York. He's involved in the drug trade and knows Dwayne Davis as a result of both their involvements in the drug trade. Dwayne Davis from the West Coast, Eric Zip Martin from the East Coast.
Der wurde auch
And
erschossen.
one
Ja.
of the connections that Dwayne Davis gets through his association with Zip Martin
Ah,
is
in
with
Bandendinger.
Sean
Okay.
Puffy Combs, who was then the CEO of Bad Boy Entertainment.
Ja, ja. Puffy, habt ihr
Sean
gehört?
Combs wanted some security when he came out to the West Coast. He was worried about Mob Piru. He was worried about the members of Death Row Records. And so Dwayne "Keefy" D. Davis agreed to be around to act as unofficial security for Sean Combs and his artists when they came out west, in order specifically to ensure there are no problems with Mob Pyro and Death Row Records. And this took a rivalry between Mob Pyro and Southside Compton Crips and escalated it. And those tensions boiled over in the Lakewood Mall in the summer of 1996. There, you'll hear that Trayvon Lane, a member of the Mob Pyru, associated with Death Row Records, was there with other members of Mob Pyru in order to do some shopping. Lakewood Mall was a mall nearby Compton. You'll also hear that baby Lane Anderson, Orlando Anderson, the defendant's nephew, was there.
Das ist eine gute
Now,
Frage.
Trayvon Lane that day
Es ist eine gute Frage, wie viele Tage es gibt. Ich glaube, 5 Wochen soll das Ganze eventuell dauern, Leute. Und wir sind am ersten Tag jetzt, ne? Keine Ahnung. Es kann schnell vorbeigehen, aber auch länger gehen. Man weiß es nicht genau. Tatsächlich. Ja. 5 Wochen, glaube ich, sind angesetzt, wenn ich mich nicht irre.
Not everybody agrees with it. But the act of disrespect of pulling the death row chain and the brawl that occurs further escalates this heated rivalry. And what you'll
Aber mal im
learn
Ernst, wie soll er denn gucken, Leute? Ich meine, hat verkackt. So wie die ganze Sache aussieht, brauchen die einen Schuldigen hier bei dieser ganzen Story. Hier sind so viele große Namen. Ich denke, der kriegt 20 Jahre plus, Leute, ne? Da ist, glaube ich, nicht mehr viel Spielraum bei dem. Die wollen einen rankriegen für diese ganze Tupac-Sache. Das ist klar, Leute.
Tupac Shakur, Suge Knight, and the people that are here with, they leave. And among his group is Trayvon Lane. And that is why this fight occurs. Trayvon Lane and the Death Row group sees Orlando Anderson standing by himself, and they decide to attack him in retribution for what happened at the Lakewood Mall. You'll see Orlando Anderson's on the bottom of that group. You see security coming, trying to break this up. And then you'll see Tupac Shakur, Suge Knight, Trayvon Lane, and that group exit the MJ ramp. Now, Orlando Anderson was by himself because when Dwayne Davis purchased the tickets
Liebe Grüße zurück an alle.
Seldon fight, he got them through a scalper. So everybody that came with Dwayne Davis were seated separately throughout the fight. And so Orlando Anderson was at that time by himself.
Es gibt leider keine Untertitel.
You'll see that
Schaut, seht ihr das? Ich kann es nicht anklicken. Nein, seht ihr gar nicht, gell?
and his group
Guck,
leave.
siehst du das? Weil das live ist, deswegen. Es geht nicht. Gibt keine Untertitel.
And you'll see that Orlando Anderson, after being held by security, is questioned for a bit, asked if he wants to press charges.
Das wäre Hammer. Das wäre Hammer, wenn über Biggie Smalls auch noch hier was rauskommen würde. Das wäre stark, Leute. Das wäre richtig stark.
He doesn't need medical attention.
Lauter machen? Ja, hier, Maximum.
Dwayne Davis hears about this beating. And what you will hear is that in his world, there is no question that a response is required. And you will hear from Dwayne Davis what happens next. Because what happened over the next 2.5 hours is something Dwayne Davis would later describe himself in the secret 2008 interview from his attorney's office with the federal task force. And we'll talk about that interview and the circumstances surrounding that later. But we'll hear about what the next 2.5 hours was.
Bin gespannt.
So, what we learn is that Dwayne Davis is upset about the beating of his nephew. And frankly, that's not an unusual response. What's unusual is the next steps Dwayne Davis takes. Unusual for the normal person, maybe not unusual for in-gang culture. Dwayne Davis decides he is going to organize a retaliation, that this beating cannot go unanswered. Then he runs into a person named Zip Martin. Remember the Zip Martin that was a connection with Bad Boy Entertainment from New York? And Zip Martin tells him that he has a gun and that he can come help him out.
Okay, where do you go to? What do you tell Zip right then? You tell Zip, hey, we're going to go handle this shit or whatever?
Yeah, like, y'all want us to come? Like, you know what I'm going to do? They was telling that they going to get 662 club.
Who's that?
Everybody.
Everybody out there?
Yeah, everybody. You want to come?
Well, how do you know that Zip's got a gun? Does he tell you?
It was in the lobby, in the lobby. I got one.
Did you ask him? Do you have one, or just tells you, hey, I got one?
Yeah, that's when they asked if we need some help. I got some things. Like, yeah, okay, cool.
I don't know what he gave.
Yeah.
So later, Dwayne Davis organizes 2 vehicles to go over to the 662 Club. Before that, he gets the gun from Zip Martin. He goes out to his Mercedes-Benz, gets the gun from Zip Martin, and then after some time, he assembles 2 cars to go to 662 to violently confront Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight for the beating of his nephew. And you'll hear that Dwayne Davis wasn't initially in the white Cadillac. He goes into a van, and Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, they go in a white Cadillac, and they go to Club 662, waiting for Tupac Shakur, waiting for
Ich sag euch,
waiting for this fight.
er hat niemals gedacht, dass das Ganze auf ihn zukommt. Er hat niemals gedacht, er hat die ganzen Memoiren, das Buch rausgebracht und lauter so Sachen, lauter Interviews gegeben. Moment.
So what you hear Dwayne Davis say is he got out of the van and goes into the Cadillac. And the plan at that point is to go to a liquor store, get some booze.
Das große Problem ist, Leute, der hat in Interviews alles Mögliche detailliert erklärt. In seinem Buch alles detailliert erklärt. Guten Abend. Er hat sehr detailliert alles erklärt und im Endeffekt hat er niemals damit gerechnet, dass es wirklich zu einem Prozess kommt bei dieser ganzen Sache. Er dachte, da kann jetzt über alles reden und ein bisschen Geld damit wenigstens machen, da die meisten schon verstorben sind. Versteht ihr, wie ich meine? Damit hätte er niemals gerechnet. Glaubt mir, der hätte niemals einen Ton gesagt über dieses ganze Thema, wenn er wüsste, dass er hier da so sitzt. Wisst ihr, wie ich meine? Der ist im Eimer, Leute. Der ist fix und fertig.
Before the shooting occurs, Dwayne Davis explains that the driver is Terrence T. Brown. In the rear driver's side is DeAndre Dre, or Big Dre Smith. In the rear passenger side is Orlando Baby Lane Anderson. And Dwayne Davis himself, KBD, is in the front passenger side. And this is how Dwayne Davis explains the murder of Tupac Shakur.
Ja, danke schön für dein Abonnement. Vielen, vielen Dank.
Shit. Here they come that BMW, like, hey, car. And bros, Tupac. I was like, there you go. Made the U-turn. We wasn't supposed to make it. Just wanted the U-turn.
Dankeschön, Andrea.
They was in a little lane. We just pulled up on the side, checked every car to see where they was.
So what directed your attention to him was some girl shouting at Tupac?
Tupac, he gave us some way.
Sparkly Sunshine, Dankeschön auch für deine Bits.
Yo, and I put you how they do.
No Money, Dankeschön für dein Abonnement. Guck mal, wie ich es verstanden habe, haben die ja seinen Superstar-Status ausgenutzt. Die haben ihn gerufen, wie es ihm erklärt wurde. Tupac, Tupac. Er hat da rausgeguckt. Versteht ihr? Die haben das eiskalt ausgenutzt. Und das erklärt er so schön in seinem Interview.
So you hand the gun to the backseat.
Yeah.
You hear Lane?
Yeah, Dre was like, no. And Lane's like, dude, fuck, dude.
Schwer zu verstehen.
Here, Dwayne Davis admit that as they see Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight driving to Club 662.
Guckt in sein Gesicht, Leute.
Dwayne Davis, along with Terrence Brown, DeAndre Smith, and Orlando Anderson, decide to make a U-turn, confront Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight. Dwayne Davis has the firearm. It's a firearm he got from Eric Von Zit Martin, and then he passes it to the back. Dwayne Davis says that if they were on his side, if Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight were on his side of the vehicle, he would have shot them himself. But because they were on the other side, he handed it to DeAndre Smith. DeAndre Smith, according to Dwayne Davis, did not want to shoot at that time, so Orlando Anderson shot into that car. Dwayne Davis explains this over and over again.
Literally on the street.
Okay, Wayne starts blasting. You say
Guckt in seine Augen, Leute, wenn er zu sehen ist.
he looks right at you. Are you looking at this?
I just know he does something to say, you know.
When he looks over at you, and then, Tupac's busy getting shot. Evidently, the story is Tupac's trying to either get out
In the
of
back seat or something.
Yeah, what do you see happening inside
And
that
jump
car?
in. I see the bullet going, sure, yeah, I thought he was dead. He must have scraped him or something in the head or something.
Guten Abend, guten Abend.
A piece of glass went into his neck.
Was geht, Leute?
He had a thing in the head.
Great.
Macht euch bemerkbar im Chat, Leute. Schreibt was in den Chat rein. Irgendwas.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, did you guys stop the two girls? Did both stop the car and let them get off?
Yeah. And we made the right.
Okay, but he stopped what you said. Why you cool? Let off.
And we made the right and some all the seaweed and phones. Stupid bitches. We shot their window around and they stopped.
So Tupac's trying to jump in the back seat. And what should do? Just duck him?
Duck him. He couldn't really duck him, he was too big, you know. Yeah.
One other thing Dwayne Davis talks about during the murder of Tupac Shakur is that there's a car full of women. I think he calls them broads at one point. Car full of women who are there as well. And you're going to hear from one of those women. And what she's going to tell you is that she disagrees slightly with Mr. Davis's rendition of facts. They were, in fact, communicating with Suge and Tupac's car, but they weren't talking to Tupac, they were talking to Suge. And what she says is she hears gunshots, she sees the white Cadillac flee, and then what Dwayne Davis interprets as them chasing her, she'll tell you is them just panicking and trying to get away. But she will say they inadvertently follow Dwayne Davis and the other people in the white car as they are fleeing. After Suge Knight and Tupac Shakur's vehicle is shot, Suge Knight makes a U-turn and heads back to the Las Vegas Strip. The car ultimately can go no further and stops. Police arrive, medical arrives, and you will hear that Suge Knight was...
Wie kamen denn manche Leute darauf, dass dieses Fahrzeug kugelsicher sei und solche Sachen? Woher kamen denn diese Gerüchte? Dass kein Schlüssel steckt und so weiter, diese Verschwörungstheorien, sage ich mal. Woher kamen denn diese ganzen Gerüchte? Ich habe nichts gefunden, Leute. Nur Leute, die das wiederholt haben, aber woher das wirklich kam? Keine Ahnung. Bis heute Fragezeichen. Ich hoffe, euch allen geht's gut, alle, die neu dazugekommen sind. Ich hoffe, ihr habt Kekse dabei.
But a war followed them back to Compton. Because while people were afraid to come forward to police, the police knew and the streets knew that Southside Compton Crips were responsible for this murder.
Ja, gar nichts kugelsicher.
And
Richtig.
the war that follows at Compton is a bloody one. You'll hear that Mob Piru and Southside Crip members start shooting at each other. Within 10 days, 3 people are killed. A number of people are shot, including an 11-year-old girl. And what you'll also learn is that none of those cases were prosecuted. Why? Because in this context, in the gang context of this, the combination of gangs and guns is scary. And in this world,
Ich weiß, Leute, es sind nicht viele Leute da, ne, jetzt gerade. Wir haben auch 0 Uhr, Leute, das ist kein Wunder. Aber diejenigen, die da sind, ne, und die Zeit haben, lehnt euch zurück.
who has a hard time being silent is Dwayne Davis.
Lehnt euch
You're going to
zurück.
hear from 1998 to 2023, Dwayne Davis has given a number of statements regarding this case. So, as early as 1998, Davis spoke to the FBI. He admitted he was in Las Vegas during Tupac's murder, but he denies being responsible. Then in 1999, Davis speaks to the FBI again. And these aren't interviews that are focused on the Tupac Shakur murder. These are interviews regarding drug transactions and drug trafficking. But he does say that Tupac does
Warum?
come up.
Hört ihr mich noch? Ich glaube ja. Warum hat eigentlich keiner gesagt, dass
In Las Vegas,
das live gestreamt wird?
Oh.
Oh,
Says he wasn't involved, but he was mad
Aura, Lina,
about the
Dankeschön.
fact that Orlando Anderson was beaten.
Auralina, Dankeschön für 5 verschenkte Kanalmitgliedschaften. Vielen, vielen Dank. Bedankt euch auf jeden Fall bei vielen, vielen Dank. Dankeschön für den Mega-Support. Wieso hat keiner eigentlich davon Wind bekommen, dass es live übertragen wird? Ich habe extra noch gesagt, ey, es wäre richtig krass, wenn das Ganze live übertragen wird. Und tatsächlich ist es so. Das ist stark, Leute.
A little bit about this 2008 federal task force. Because what this task force is investigating is not the murder of Tupac Shakur. What this task force is investigating is another rapper's murder. A rapper by the name of Christopher Wallace. Somebody who was known as Biggie Smalls, so the notorious B.I.G. Christopher Wallace got murdered 6 months after Tupac Shakur was killed.
Dankeschön, Dankeschön.
And there was some allegation that the LAPD might have been involved. So a federal task force was formed to determine what happened to Christopher Wallace. And
Der guckt immer weiterhin eiskalt, gell, Kifidi. Das ist wirklich ein eiskalter Typ, muss ich echt sagen. Eiskalter Typ.
also at that party, Dwayne Davis.
Hammer.
Christopher Wallace there was a suspect vehicle that involved a Chevy SS Impala, and Dwayne Davis happened to own a Chevy SS Impala. Now, as a result of that, the task force decides, well, let's look at Dwayne Davis. And the thing we know about Dwayne Davis is that he trafficked narcotics. And so they were able, through a CI and an undercover, to have a drug transaction with Dwayne Davis. And as a result, Dwayne Davis now has a case, a big trafficking case. And so the federal task force approaches Dwayne Davis and his attorney, and they say, hey, look, we want information regarding the murder of Christopher Wallace. That is what we are trying to investigate.
Tja, da nix du noch zu denen hier, ne?
I don't have any information about that thing. But I can tell you about what we did. I can tell you about Tupac. And that's what he does. He tells a federal task force that's about his involvement, what you've heard, his orchestration of the murder of Tupac Shakur. That secret conversation, that proffer, was secretly reported and released later. In 2009, Davis is being so helpful to federal authorities that he actually flies out to New York to try and get Zip Martin to implicate himself in the Tupac Shakur murder. Zip Martin at that time was dying of cancer, was out of the game, and really did not engage with Dwayne Davis. In 2009, though, Dwayne Davis gives an interview to Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department Detective Dan Long. Now,
Livestream,
Davis is more guarded.
der Livestream läuft immer noch, ne? Nur mal so. Also, weil ich hier gerade gelesen habe, du hast es live gesehen. Das ist immer noch der Livestream vom Live, von dem Prozess.
That he was in Las Vegas, that he was mad about Orlando Anderson getting beat, that he was the boss.
Ab in Knascht, so sieht's aus.
The white Cadillac, that he procured the firearm that ultimately killed Tupac Shakur. Then, in 2011, the landscape changes. Because in 2011, Greg Kading, the guy who was leading the task force in 2008, the guy who organized the secret proffer between Dwayne Davis and the federal task force, he leaves law enforcement and decides he's going to publish a book about his investigation into Biggie Smalls, the guy who was killed 6 months after Tupac, and Tupac Shakur. And what he puts in the book is that Dwayne Davis confessed to the murder of Tupac Shakur. The book tells the story about Davis' admission, about himself.
Guck mal, Leute, die Sache ist die. Kann man sagen, er ist der Mörder, wenn er ihn nicht alleine erschossen hat? Ja, Leute. Die Sache ist, das ist ja nicht ein einziger Mensch gewesen, der ihn erschossen hat. Da sind ja einmal mehrere Leute draufgeschossen, wie wir alle wissen. Und die andere Sache, deswegen, denn macht die ganze Zeit nein. Meiner Meinung nach hat das auch was zu tun, ne, dass auch Biggie Smalls aus dieser Welt entfernt wurde. Hat auch was mit dieser ganzen Bandenkriminalität und dieses ganze, mit dem ganzen Ding hängt das alles zusammen, meiner Meinung nach. Das ist absolut kein Zufall. Deswegen, ich hoffe, dass hier mehr rauskommt, als nur, dass er halt 20 Jahre bekommt. Ich hoffe, dass wirklich hier mehr rauskommt.
Davis decides to go public. He's approached by the producers of a show called Death Row Chronicles that appears on BET. And this is just a small portion of what he says is his motivation for appearing.
When I went in DVD days, I was a popping, kingpin, drug dealer. I'm the only one alive that really can tell you the story about the Tupac settlement. People have been pursuing me for 20 years.
Dankeschön für 10 Bits.
I'm coming out now to tell the story because I got cancer. I got nothing else to lose. All I care about now is the truth.
Der hat für ein paar $1.000, Leute, oder für ein paar $100 sich dahingesetzt, als Mörder quasi, als Mittäter, und hat da die großen Reden geschwungen. Versteht ihr, was ich meine? Jeder hat diesen Mann geliebt. Also Tupac, war wie viel? 24, 25 Jahre alt oder so? Ey, Leute, ich bitte euch, der hatte seine besten Jahre noch vor sich. Und der Typ hat einfach der ganzen Welt quasi großartige Musik und einen großartigen Mensch genommen. Das muss man sich mal vorstellen. Und er stellte sich dahin in seinem Interview unzählige Male in sein Buch und erzählt, wie er das quasi alles organisiert hat und dass er der krasse Typ ist.
Orlando Baby Lane Anderson is deceased.
25.
Terrence Brown was murdered in an unrelated incident. Orlando Anderson was murdered in an unrelated incident.
Und warum sollte er denn, meiner Meinung nach, warum sollte er denn im Nachhinein gelogen haben, Leute? Also, im Nachhinein gelogen haben. Er hat auch die ganze Zeit sich dahingestellt und jedes Mal Interviews gegeben, dass Puffy, dass Diddy ein Kopfgeld auf Tupac gesetzt hat, $1 Million. Warum soll er das dann erfunden haben und das alles gesagt haben? Später, wo er auf der Anklagebank sitzt, sagt er, ja, alles ist gelogen. Was wird wohl die Wahrheit sein, Leute? Sogar 50 Cent hat sich darüber lustig gemacht, wegen dieser Sache. Und ihn einen Trottel genannt. Ja, warum wohl? Warum wohl?
And what you'll notice is a constant thing that always goes through these statements is Dwayne Davis's visceral anger at Tupac Shakur for putting hands on his nephew. In the book, he says, them jumping on my nephew gave us the ultimate green light to do something to their ass. Then, Dwayne Davis decides that he's going to do public interviews regarding his role in the murder of Tupac Shakur.
Yep.
So you ended up getting in the car with Baby Lane and them?
Yeah, the car was on me, yeah. We ran into them, went to the light on Sunset and Flamingo, and dude, we acted like he was in a parade or something. That nigga in that BMW hanging out with him. Hey, it's Tupac, it's Tupac. And them bitches, they was hollering for him. Yeah, they were that motherfucker. They came up on the side of him. Shit.
Fast eine eiskalte Witzfigur.
Davis's public admissions mirror his private life. He admits to being a leader of Southside Crips. He admits to the significance of the fight over the death row chain at the Lakewood Mall. He admits to being in Las Vegas the night of the fight. He admits to being angry that Tupac stomped Orlando Anderson at the MGM. He admits that he was hunting down Tupac and Suge, first going to 662. He admits that he got a Glock 40 from Eric Zip Martin for the purposes He admits that
Xavier Naidoo Shorts schreibt, hier wird nur ein Sündenbock gesucht, wie der Arzt von Michael Jackson. Sündenbock. Aber mal im Ernst, wen willst du denn noch greifen? Meiner Meinung nach haben die viel zu lange gewartet. Wen willst du denn noch greifbar machen bei diesem ganzen Tupac-Prozess? Wen denn? Suge Knight? Den willst du irgendwas erzählen lassen, der nur Müll erzählt? Wir haben doch hier einen super Typ, der dabei war. Und klar, wenn ich der Richter wäre, ich hätte jeden aus seinem Loch rausgeholt. Ob er es ist oder Diddy, egal wen, ich hätte ihn zur Rechenschaft gezogen. 100 Pro.
Tupac was wrong with two motherfucking shoes. I mean, don't you take me wrong, honestly.
I mean, yeah, I think you could, react in a better way.
Listen, you don't think that man is wrong?
He could have reacted in a better way, I guess.
I'm talking, Vlad is his fucking biggest fan. He admitted that man is wrong, man.
He's wrong, man, but that was only done out of loyalty, man.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. He never jumped, my nephew didn't jump on him. He jumped on my nephew was a kid, man. My nephew was a fucking kid. He was a grown-ass man, so, you know what I'm saying? He was a fucking kid, dude. That's why he had on the channel. He's a fucking kid, dude. You know what I'm saying? They was wrong. My nephew never jumped on him. They jumped on my nephew. My nephew didn't throw a punch, man. Shit was wrong, dude. Jumped on the fucking kid, dude.
Ja, der hat ihn zusammengeschlagen, sein Neffen halt, ne?
And this anger is not just demonstrated publicly, but you will hear as recently as 2024, privately, in a conversation with his son, he talks about his feelings about Tupac Shakur, nearly 30 years after the murder.
What I do is I'll way out in for him, dude. So he is not ready to put them on me to go back. You know what I'm saying? Fucking prison. He's fucking
Was für eine Quali, oh mein Gott, wie ekelhaft. Sorry, Leute.
28 years later, that is the visceral anger that Dwayne Davis had.
28 Jahre später, ja.
It did it in 2.5 hours. He took care of what he thought was the proper response. And 28 years later, he still is angry about what Tupac did. On September 7th, 1996, Tupac Shakur publicly, on camera, participated in a humiliating beating of Dwayne Davis' nephew, Orlando Anderson. Dwayne Davis knew that in his world, that required a response. And over the years, in private interviews, in public statements, and even in private calls, Dwayne Davis has repeatedly told us, over and over again, about the anger he felt and his own role in the revenge drive-by shooting of Tupac Shakur. And now, nearly 30 years later, we're going to ask you to finally hold Dwayne Davis accountable. Thank you.
Er hat es unzählige Male selber gesagt, ja. Jetzt kommt der Anwalt von KVD. Jetzt kommt der Anwalt vom Käfer. Ja, das sieht selber aus wie ein Krimineller. Der Anwalt sieht selber aus wie ein Krimineller. Das ist voll, ey, warum nicht? Der ist voll tätowiert. Warum nicht? Aber sieht ganz lustig aus. Sieht aus wie ein Rocker. Ein bisschen, ne? Richterin Barbara Salisch.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Kennt ihr Richterin Barbara Salisch? Guten Abend.
We spent a lot of time, I think, when we were picking a jury to determine who would be the right jurors for a case like this. Obviously, we want people who are going to reserve judgment until the end, but really look at the evidence with a critical eye. Now, what the state has just told you what they believe to be the evidence in this case. But really, at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself if what they're saying is really truth or fiction, fact or fiction. I don't know if some of you recall, but I had asked a question specifically about what you were holding in your hands. And right now, for instance, you're all holding notepads and pens. That would be a fact, right? And in this case, for instance, I had asked before about the idea of, I can just do this, right?
Die Fakten will ich mal gerne sehen jetzt.
Microphone.
Er will sich auf Fakten
I'd
stützen.
ask some of you, if that microphone was buried and dug up 30 years from now, would it still be a microphone? The answer is yes. And the reason why that's important is because in this case, what they are telling you, they're representing it to be a fact when it really is fiction. And it's up to you to determine what the facts are in this case. Now, I'm going to give you a timeline here for you to understand just a little bit of how this is going to work, because there's so much evidence in this case that we have to sort of compartmentalize some things. And what I've done is really just sort of focused on the three detectives that work this file from beginning to now. First detective you will hear about is Detective Becker. He works the file. He's the original detective on the scene. Detective Long takes over the case for about 15 years or so. And then it ends with Detective Mogg, who presents this to the grand jury in 2023. But why this timeline is relevant is because you have to see the span of time for yourself. 30 years. And ask yourself this, what facts do they have after 30 years? Now, Detective Becker does what every homicide detective does when he arrives on scene. He's assigned to the case. He starts his investigation. At that particular time, though, Tupac Shakur was not dead. He was critically injured. He was at UMC. And it isn't until 6 days later that he passes away. But Detective Becker starts his initial investigation because it's pretty serious, and as a result, he just takes over the investigation. What he will testify to is that
Seht es mal so, Leute. Irgendwas muss er ja argumentieren, ne? Ich sehe das genauso wie ihr.
and Bruce Selden, it was very busy when he arrived. And he arrived at a time where he was able to determine cartridge casings, 40 caliber, that was found at the scene. That's another fact for you. But at some point they're going to learn, he learns that potentially it was a Glock 40 that was the actual firearm that was used in this case. And then when crime scene analysts arrive on scene, they document the evidence. And they document the cars. That will be important, and you'll determine at some point why the cars are documented. And with regard to Detective Becker, what he'll tell you is police officers write reports. Critical. Hugely important. Why? Because at some point in the future, like in this case 30 years later, Detective Becker will not remember details like he would if he had, what? His report in front of him. And that's going to be important for you to consider in this case. Now, what Detective Becker does, though, is because of the outcry, the attention, the media focus on this case, he took his file and he secured it in his office under lock and key. Because he was worried about leaks in Metro, leaking information out to the public, because so many people wanted to know answers to the question as to what happened and who did this to Tupac Shakur. Now, what you're going to find is, when Detective Becker testifies in this case, that a lot of his reports are now missing. They're gone. Which is Metro's responsibility to hold and to pass
Was geht,
on
Leute,
to
was
the
geht?
next detective and then
Liebe
finally
Grüße
to
an
the
alle.
next detective.
Ihr seid die Besten.
Now, Detective Becker also did not trust Compton PD. Why is that important in this case? Because there's an individual by the name of Reggie Wright Sr. He was a lieutenant working in Compton in charge of the gangs in Compton in terms of investigations. His son is Reggie Wright Jr. He was the head of security for Death Row Records. The same security that was here in Las Vegas on the 9th of September 7th, 1996. Death Row Records was affiliated with Mob Pyru Blood, and Detectives Ladd and Brennan from Compton answered directly to Reggie Wright Sr. Becker did not trust Compton PD. And the one thing that he really didn't trust is that most of their information came from confidential informants that were not reliable. And he'll tell you that. And because of his intuition, Compton PD was shut down in September of 2000 due to internal corruption. They just evaporated that police department, and the sheriff's department for LA County absorbed the responsibilities for the police department in Compton because of the corruption that was there. Now what facts, right? Just like the pads of paper that you have in your hand and the pens that you have in your hand, what facts can we determine from Detective Becker's efforts? First and foremost, we know that Tupac was shot multiple times. That's a fact. That can be proven. We know that it was with a .40 caliber firearm. That's a fact, due to the cartridge casings. On the corner of Flamingo and Cobalt. That's also a fact. Right? We're on board so far? We know the date, September 7th, 1996.
Ab in Knast.
That is a fact.
Kann ich halt so nur sagen. Ab in Knast. Aber ganz
We know
schnell.
that to be a fact as well. And then finally, that he was in a vehicle during March of night, and that Tupac died 6 days later. Those are facts
Zuckerneid.
that will not be refuted by anybody in this courtroom during the time we spend together. But here's the one thing. There are no facts to point to Keefe. Not one. And you're going to hear about this over and over and over again. No facts like the microphone in your hand or the pad of paper that you have that you write on.
Andrea, du musst unten auf Live klicken. Dann wirst du vorgespult. Du bist weit zurück. Die Frage habe ich vor einigen Minuten gestellt.
And at the time of the shooting, he was in gangs, and he had been one of the first to arrive on scene. He will testify and tell you that every time he did something on this file, he wrote a report. Because that's important. That's what you do as a police officer. And he conducted follow-up interviews, and he made some travel to Compton. He will tell you those things. That's his role in all of this. But here's the thing. Detective Long also encountered some challenges in this case. They had to hide the case file with Metro because people were still accessing the file in Metro, and they weren't authorized to do so. So they changed the case number so that people couldn't find the file. In addition to that, what you're going to learn is LAPD reached out to him, called them up and said, "Hey, Detective Long, we have the gun. And we've tested it, and it matches back to what you're looking for in terms of the weapon that killed Tupac Shakur." Detective Long goes to LAPD, gets the gun, transports it back, gets it tested, and it comes out as not a match. LAPD tells him after, "We gave you a fake gun to test you out." This is the level of, I don't know how to put it, that was going on during this time period between Metro, LAPD, and Compton. This is what's happening during this time period. Leads, according to Detective Long, became very scarce and stale, meaning that it was just taking a long time for him to follow up with people. Witnesses became unavailable. Why do you think that is? Because of time. So as a result, memories started failing because of that time. So Detective Long had these challenges. But here's what Detective Long does. He interviews Keefe in 2009. Sits him down, has an interview with Keefe, just like the state said. And guess what happens? Detective Long doesn't even know that Keefe had actually spoken to a task force the year before. How is that possible? Metro is the agency responsible for the investigation of Tupac Shakur's murder, and they don't even know about this. No one in that room in 2008 told Detective Long or Metro what was going on. And you know who was in the room in 2008? You had FBI in the room. You had DEA in the room. You had LAPD in the room. You had the United States Attorney for the Central District of California in that room. And Detective Long does not know about any of that. what you will also learn is out of all those people in that room, not one person verifies what TPP tells them. That the FBI, the gold standard of investigation in our country, did not go out and follow up on what was said. Now, one of the things the state showed you was a picture of a car and indicated there was 4 individuals in that car. And he tell you that at some point, 3 of those individuals are dead and Keefe is the only one that's remaining. But at the time that he gives his statement to the task force,
Schon brutal durcheinander, was der Anwalt hier erzählt, ne? Ich glaube den ehrlich gesagt auch nicht. Was soll er machen, außer lügen? Ganz im Ernst bei diesem Fall. Was soll er machen, außer lügen?
was true. Why not? Because the FBI just fell asleep? That the LAPD just didn't care? Keefe was never charged for any of what he said during that time period. And it's because they knew he was full of crap. Otherwise they would have. Why wouldn't they?
Wir dürfen nicht vergessen, da kann er erstmal alles erzählen, ne? Der andere muss halt dann das Gegenteil beweisen. Die Staatsanwaltschaft, wenn ihr so möchtet.
Vegas, he goes and he talks it over with the Clark County District Attorney's Office. And you know what happened then?
Das sieht aus, als ob von dem hier oben ein Standbild ist von Keefe.
In 2009.
Der guckt immer gleich. So.
Ask yourself the reason why that is. It's because they just didn't care about Tupac Shakur or his life? Or is it because they looked into it and realized we can't verify this information, we don't believe this to be true? Why would the Clark County District Attorney's Office not charge him in 2009?
Der muss mit den Cast.
Now, what facts do we get out of Detective Long based upon what he did for those 15 years? We don't have facts. Outside of statements made allegedly by KPD and other people, we don't have anything to verify any of that information. Not one single thing to corroborate the statements made by that man in 2008 or 2009.
Der denkt sich hoffentlich, glauben die mit den Anwalt.
By the FBI, by LAPD, by the DEA, by the United States Attorney's Office. No one corroborates any of this.
Ist doch kein Problem, dann können die ja das alles bestätigen, oder? Die ganzen Behörden. Ist doch kein Thema.
And an entity called the Center of Investigative Reporting, they file what's called a FOIA request with Metro. And what that means is, FOIA is the Freedom of Information Act. It allows or requires government agencies to give up information if you ask for it. That's the rule. It's to be transparent. And people wanted to know what was going on with the murder files. This is 2017. This is years
Leon,
after
Dankeschön
any of the statements
für
that were made
weitere
and anything else.
99
Where's the
Cent. Vielen Dank.
investigation? What's
Vielen
going
Dank.
on?
Danke für den
Metro
Support.
said, no, we're not going to give it to you. So in 2018, the Senate turns around and files a lawsuit against Metro to force them to give them the file, to show them what work had you been doing over, at that particular point, I don't know, what's that?
Support ist kein Mord, liebe Leute.
20 years?
Erstmal was trinken. So sieht's aus, Keefe. Du weißt, du bist eh bald wieder drin. Schnell, trink, isst,
What
alles.
you will learn is that Detective Mogg basically says, I'm here just to close out the case. He's not here to solve the mystery of who killed Tupac. So with everything you have in front of you, that you're now hearing for the first time in terms of the statements that were made in 2008, 1998, 1990, whatever, Detective Mogg comes along and says, I'm just here to close out the case. That's his role. And what you're going to learn is Detective Mogg received a copy of what's called the Death Row Chronicles in 2018. It's not a deposition. It's not testimony under oath. It's edited and it's done for execution purposes. He receives a copy of it. You know what happens when he receives that copy of the interviews that the state has basically shown you in this case? No charges filed. Why? So, Keefe writes a book, allegedly. Right? Allegedly, he writes this book called Conflict Legend in 2019.
Ganz ruhig.
You know what happened with the book? Right? Even he confesses to it. What you find is, no charges filed. What is going on? District Attorney's Office doesn't want to charge the case. No charges filed when the interview happens. No charges are filed when the book is written. What is going on? 5 years goes by. and nothing is going on with the case. But Detective Mogg says he's closing it out.
Gute Nacht.
Detective Mogg turns around and applies for what's called a search warrant. Now, what a search warrant is that in
Ratz von Schlafmütz. Guten Morgen.
A search warrant requires a police officer to get permission from a judge to basically violate the sanctity and privacy of your home. Right? There's got to be legal reasons for it. He's got to go through that process, and he's got to ask permission from a judge in order for him to get that. And what he does in that search warrant application is he assures the judge, hey, what we are looking for is in the home. The thing that's going to help us solve this crime, who killed Tupac, is in the home. And he signs an affidavit, and that's important. I want you to remember this. He signs an affidavit attesting to what he's saying to this judge to be true and correct.
I know what's happened. Richtig,
What
what
he
happened?
says is, I think we have evidence in Keefe D's home that will solve the murder of Tupac. So up until this point, they've got all these statements, they can't be corroborated. So now they're saying, we have evidence in this home that we think probably is in the home. And as a result, we're going to find this evidence. It's going to help us solve this case. What I'm going to tell you right now is that you don't find it. And in the meantime, Detective Mogg retires. He now becomes Mr. Mogg. And Mr. Mogg goes to the grand jury. And in the grand jury, it's a secret proceeding. We're not there. The defense, isn't sitting like we are here. It's just the prosecutors. There's a panel of people called the grand jurors, and you have people come up and they testify under oath. And there's really no way for the defense to challenge any of it because it's done in secret. We don't really know about it. But in this particular case, Mr. Mogg is sworn to testify truthfully. And you know what Mr. Mogg does? He just reads pages of the book into the record. He doesn't do any more in terms of an investigation than read pages of a book into the record. He never documents in any of his efforts any verification of the book before he reads it into the record. He walks up, gets on the stand.
Ich glaube, der ist irgendwas mit 65 oder so, Lino.
And that's what he does. He treats that book like it's fact.
Oder, KVD?
Now,
65, oder? Oder irre ich mich?
what you're going to find out about Mr. Mogg is that he never
50
wrote a
rum.
report.
Keine Ahnung.
So when he took over the case in 2017, all the way up until when he retired in 2023 and was in front of the grand jury, he never wrote a report.
Ich komme sofort wieder, Leute. Ich komme
Not
sofort wieder.
one time. Not like Detective Becker.
Melli, danke schön für 5 verschenkte kleine Keksmonster-Subs. Vielen, vielen Dank.
Does their job. This man never writes a report.
Vielen, vielen Dank für den Support.
In fact, what happens is he transitions, right?
Bedankt euch alle einmal bei Melli. Der hat auf jeden Fall hier wieder mal gegönnt. Vielen, vielen lieben Dank. Dankeschön für den ganzen Support. Kifidi ist 63 anscheinend. Okay. Dankeschön. Bedankt euch alle. Vielen, vielen Dank. Vielen, vielen Dank. Vielen, vielen Dank. Ihr seid die Allerbesten. Liebe, Liebe, Liebe. Ich bin sofort wieder da.
You hand your file and your officer's report to the next detective in line. That's how this works. But he keeps the file for himself and he starts billing against the file after he retires as a detective in Metro. Because now he's an independent contractor. That's important to know. Why is that important? Because what the evidence is going to show you is that he backloaded his work. And when he finally writes a report, it's not an officer's report, it's an investigative report that spans from 2018 to current, and we just received it about 5 weeks ago. The importance of capturing everything you do, the accuracy that you would need to be able to be in court on a murder case, not some type of college paper that you forgot to do and then the last second just put something together and, get it out the door. Mr. Mogg does not do any of that. That's going to be important later for you to consider. Because according to that report that he submitted 5 weeks ago or so, he never verified the book. According to that report, he never investigated any of the alternate theories that were out there, and you're going to hear about those alternate theories. there are people who have developed over time answers to the question, who did this and why? He never looked into any of it. Which I think, at the end of the day, don't you want to see what's out there to help you with your investigation? And according to his work, his report, he did more on the case after he became an investigator than he did before when he was a detective. What I'm going to tell you right now is what you're going to find when you listen to all the evidence, that his work was biased, sloppy, and incomplete. Those are the three things you're going to determine for Mr. Ma. Now, because of the fact that in terms of the evidence itself, he doesn't have much, the state's going to lean pretty heavily on their witnesses. And I'm going to give you a sampling of the type of people you're going to come across in this trial based upon their witness list.
Wer will einen Keks? Schnell, schnappt euch
First person
Kekse.
is this guy named Reggie Wright Jr. He's the security company for, thank you,
Bin eine Eiswürfel.
records. And what he is a felon. Second of all, you're also going to find that he's a former Compton police officer. He worked for Compton PD for about 5 years, and apparently he got disabled. At some point, he becomes a felon. You're going to learn about that. And his father, like I said before earlier, Reggie Wright Sr. was the head of the Compton PD gang unit. What you're also going to learn about Reggie is that, once again, he was supposed to be protecting Suge Knight. Where was he the night of the shooting? In addition to that,
Sagt's aber nicht den anderen. Nur die Kekse, wo da sind, bekommen jetzt Kekse. Alle anderen haben jetzt leider Pech gehabt.
the shooting took place. What you're also going to learn is he wasn't even around when the shooting occurred. So the principal, meaning the person he should have been protecting the most, would have been Suge Knight, the head of Death Row Records. This man was nowhere to be found. He was sitting at a
Hab ich was
club
verpasst?
called 662 down the street, waiting for Suge to show up.
Der erzählt immer noch irgendwas, gell? Der Clown.
Unarmed in the vehicles behind Suge Knight. And when push comes to shove, he orders his people to lie to police during their investigation. That's going to be called by them. That guy's going to be called by them. In addition to that, when everything was said and done, Suge Knight went to prison because he was not supposed to be in a fight in Las Vegas. He violates his release. Guess who takes over Death Row Records? Reggie Wright Jr. Now, the state is also going to bring in other people with unreliable
Guck mal, der popelt. Guck mal hier, der popelt einfach, eiskalt.
and inconsistent statements. That are the people and the quality of the evidence that you're going to listen to in this case.
Guck mal hier,
Just to give you another example, there's going to be an individual by the name of...
der tut sich nicht mal richtig die Nase putzen. Der macht den hier, passt auf, den hier. Hier und dann dreht er. So intelligent ist er, macht den hier, der dreht. Der benutzt nicht einfach wie normaler Mensch, so. So, er macht den hier. Perfekt.
In addition to that, you're also going to learn about a disgraced LAPD detective by the name of Greg Kading. The state told you about him. He wrote a book. He benefited off of what was happening with regards to Keithy. Now, Greg Kading, he stole...
Wenn dieser Stream 1000 Likes bekommt, dann tue ich das nochmal übersetzen für euch. Ansonsten nicht.
And the Biggie case files.
Das geht echt lange, Leute. Das geht echt lange.
This is an LAPD detective that they are using, or one of the people that they're going to be focusing on to establish their case. He writes the book, and then he holds himself out as the person who solves the murder. That's Greg Kading. That's the LAPD detective. Now, what you're also going to learn is Greg Kading, when he was a detective with LAPD, was basically caught manipulating witnesses. And because he was caught manipulating witnesses, it led to cases being overturned as a result. There was a court finding on this issue. A judge determined that. And there we go. That's Greg Kading. That's a witness in this case from that. Now, your challenges, right? I mean, gosh, we're sitting here, there's cameras in the room. I mean, things going on. But it's really time.
Also ich hätte es besser gefunden, wenn er den hier gemacht hätte, so. Das hätte ich besser gefunden, als irgendwie rumzustochern da mit dem Dings. Meine Hände sind sauber, meine Finger sind auch sauber. Aber ich benutze ein Taschentuch. Oder willst du auch in den Knast? Hä? Willst du auch in den Knast mit dem? Dann mach nur weiter so.
Like skepticism. Like you're gonna look at this stuff and be like, well, I mean, you have a motive to lie. You have a motive to tell or deceive. And it's because at the end of the day, there's not actual facts. When you get past all the talk and me talking, just look at the actual facts. What facts do you have to support any of what KPD said or any of his interviews?
Bester Kommentar. Die sehen seine Tattoos und wissen, da ist was im Busch.
When you look at this relevant timeline again, and you see the length of time, ask yourself, what facts do they have to even put KPD in a car in Las Vegas on September 7th, 1996? What facts? When you look at the video that happened at the MGM, look for them. Try to find them in there. Try to find any of the other individuals. Remember, he said there's 3 individuals in the car with him and Orlando Anderson. Orlando's in the video because he's getting beat up. Find any of those other individuals on the videos of the MGM. Look for evidence that shows that KPD was even in Las Vegas on the night of the fight. Receipts, credit cards, a picture of him standing next to somebody else, maybe watching the fight from another casino. Something. Give me something. In the book, you're going to learn that KPD says that he was at the fight. He was sitting on the second row. He was sitting with all the celebrities, and he's dressed in his finest gear. There's not one iota of proof.
Ich weiß, ihr denkt, ne, die meisten denken halt, es ist komisch, wenn ein Anwalt Tattoos hat, aber mir ist es ehrlich gesagt egal, solange er seine Arbeit macht. Ne, wirkt vielleicht ein bisschen unseriös für den einen oder anderen, aber ja, was soll ich euch sagen? Ich hätte kein Problem damit.
With Suge Knight's possession. Because he went to the fight. And you would think, a fight like this, you want to show everyone that you were at the fight. There's no evidence at all that man was even at the fight. When we take fact versus fiction, really at the end of the day, what you're going to hear from witnesses that will testify to this
Okay.
is that KPD was known to do this. That's the testimony you're going to hear in this case. That's what you're going to hear about that man right there. And so you have to ask yourself the question. If I just say things, is that going to end up being one of those things where I'm going to be hemmed up for a murder if I just keep repeating a fiction? If I keep repeating that?
Niemals würde ich mich von dem
The
verteidigen
answer is
lassen.
no. You have to corroborate everything I say in order for it to be true. Otherwise, it's just that. Or fiction. And at the end of all the time we spend together, what you're going to find is that the state cannot prove to you beyond reasonable doubt the claim that Keefe had anything to do with a first-degree murder with use of deadly weapon.
Da kann ich gleich in den Knast gehen.
To that matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandler. State, at this time, are you prepared to proceed with your case in chief, or did you need a brief break?
Gott sei Dank, er ist fertig. Gott sei Dank, Leute. Gott sei Dank ist er
Sure,
fertig.
you can do that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we are going to take a 15-minute break. During this recess, you are admonished not to talk or converse amongst yourselves or with anyone else on any subject
Ja,
of the trial.
ja,
Or read, watch, or listen to any
KPD.
report or commentary on the trial of any person-
Jetzt erstmal in die Kantine gehen, ne? Jetzt erstmal schön mampfen. Wir gehen jetzt in die Kantine, sagt er jetzt. Da gibt's Gulaschauflauf. Ja.
We'll have you guys back here at 11 a.m. Please rise for the jury.
Und weiter geht's, liebe Leute.
UMC, did you earlier in the vehicle?
Yes.
And who is that?
Marion Knight was outside of the vehicle,
Weiter geht's, Leute.
walking around, talking, and Tupac Shakur was being removed by EMS people.
As Marion Knight is talking, do you recall anything he's saying?
He was telling us to take care of Tupac Shakur. He had Marion Knight had a chunk of shrapnel or something in his head. He was bleeding, and when I went to talk to him, he was adamant that we needed to go and care for Mr. Shakur.
Did you then go to Mr. Shakur?
Yes, I did.
And then what do you do? What's your responsibility as it relates to Mr. Shakur as the EMT is working on?
I was trying to talk to him to find out what had happened. Excuse me. Gather information to see who had fired at them.
Did you wind up riding anywhere with Mr. Shakur?
Yes, I rode to the hospital in
And
the
during-
ambulance with him.
During that time period, between the time you get to Mr. Shakur and the time period he gets taken into the hospital, are you able to have any sort of communication with Mr. Shakur?
He was still talking, and I was trying to convince him to tell me the name of whoever his assailants were.
And did he ever respond?
Yes, he responded, no, we'll take care of it. So, something like that.
Said, no, we'll take care
We'll
of
take
it.
care of it, something like that.
And that's the only thing you were able to gather from Mr. Shakur?
Yeah, I couldn't get him to talk to me any further than that. That was repeated a couple of times.
I'm going to approach with a few photographs. Obviously, when an incident, well, let me back up. When an incident like this happens, there's first responders, but then there is detectives, crime scene analysts, everybody who's called out. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Showing you what's been marked.
Pensionierter Detective oder so, der bei der ganzen Sache dabei war, der auch Tupac in ein Krankenhaus irgendwie begleitet hat oder was weiß ich was.
Marked as grand jury exhibit number 4.
Glaube ich.
You recognize the individual who appears to be inside that vehicle at that time.
Dan Ford.
Do you know what he did for Metro?
At the time, he was a detective. I was not there when that photograph was taken. But at the time, he was a detective. I'm not sure what he was, homicide or general assignment or
Could he be a crime scene?
crime scene analyst, yeah, CSI.
And then I'm just going to show you a few other pictures of the vehicle itself. Showing you stage proposed exhibits 5 through 8. Just flip through those.
Lieber nochmal die Nase putzen.
Okay.
Is that how the vehicle appeared to you when you first arrived on scene? Obviously without people in it.
Right, on the scene of the, where it stopped in the middle of Harmon Boulevard.
Move to admit 5 through 8.
Any objection, Mr. Sant?
No objection, Your Honor.
So admitted, you may publish.
And then finally, while you were at UMC, did you collect some personal items off Mr. Shakur?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as stage proposed exhibit number 33. You recognize that?
Yes.
What is it?
That's the objects I removed from
Gute Nacht, Lino. Gute
Tupac
Nacht, schlaf
Shakur.
gut.
I impounded those into evidence. There should be
Seid
a
ihr anderen noch
file.
da? Seid ihr noch wach?
Let's talk about that large gold chain we see in that photograph right there. The second time you came across Mr. Shakur, was he wearing that gold chain that's around his neck?
No.
And so you weren't able to recover that from him at the hospital?
No.
Judge, I'm just going to put up a few of these photographs.
Okay. My clerk's letting you know that 4 was not admitted.
Move to admit 4.
Any objection, Mr. Sant?
No objection, Your Honor.
So admitted.
Showing you 4. That's Mr. Ford appearing like he's inside that vehicle.
Okay.
5. That's the front of the vehicle. Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, she's typing down everything, so you got to answer yes or no.
Apologies.
That's the rear of the vehicle without the license plate still.
Yes.
Number 8 is the driver's side of the
Was meinst du mit
vehicle.
hochladen? Es bleibt sowieso online.
Yes.
Bleibt online, sowieso.
And-
Die Geschichte, wo wir uns hier anschauen. Falls du das meinst.
Oops.
Mr. DeJacmo,
Right now I
33
put the
also
wrong
not
one up,
admitted.
Judge.
Okay.
Leo, was geht?
Go on.
There you go. 7. That is what the passenger side of that vehicle looked like.
Yes.
finally for you, 33.
Those are the items you were collected off Mr. Shakur at the hospital.
Keine Sorge, bleibt online, Lino. Lino.
Mr. Sam
Bleibt
has
online.
requested and I've agreed to also offer Dan Ford's CSA report as Mr. Ford is not physically capable of coming to court to testify.
So that'll be admitted via stipulation?
Yes.
What exhibit did you want it to be?
I guess we could just make it next in order, which I believe is 143.
All right, that'll be admitted via stipulation as 143.
Thank you, Honor.
No problem. I think 33 has been worked on. They have not been front of it.
And based upon that agreement,
This is 33? 33 is also not admitted.
move to admit 33.
Any objection?
No objection here.
So admitted.
And based on that agreement that we've reached with
Für alle anderen, die jetzt erst das im Nachhinein sehen werden, vielleicht die bis hierhin geschaut haben, was sollte ich sagen? Vergesst auf jeden Fall nicht, euren Freunden Bescheid zu sagen, jeder, der sich für diesen Fall interessiert. Wir probieren es auf jeden Fall, wir probieren am Ball zu bleiben und bis zum Ende durchzuhalten über diesen ganzen Prozess. Das geht, glaube ich, 5 Wochen oder so. Also nicht vergessen zu abonnieren. Ist kostenlos. Dankeschön. Der Anwalt ist wieder da, der Lügenbold. Ich frage mich immer noch, ob wir es live sehen werden, wie bei Pinocchio, ob die Nase bei ihm wächst. Ob wir das live sehen können.
And you are Mr. Dale.
Yes.
Well, welcome back to the courtroom.
Thanks.
So let me ask you this. So how long had you been working for Metro until you retired, basically?
Like 13 years?
I see. And at the time when you were on the bicycle on September 7th, 1996, how long had you been working for Metro at that point?
Yeah, I thought that's what you asked to begin with.
Oh.
I started in '83, so it would have been right around 13 years.
I see. And obviously, when you are first a police officer, you go through an academy before you become an actual police officer.
Yes, sir.
And you learn skills and techniques and things to help you become a successful police officer.
Yes.
One of those things I would imagine would be writing reports.
Yes.
Now, fair to say, though, in this particular case, what you had done was basically you saw a license plate that wasn't on a vehicle, you stopped them, you asked for their ID, and at some point you just allowed them to continue on their way.
Yes.
So there was no need to write a report about that.
No.
Okay. Did you write a report with regards to that stop?
Willkommen zurück, Leo.
Okay. Now, when you were present at the scene and you saw the vehicle stop, do you know if any other vehicles were behind it?
No, I did not see any other vehicles behind it, so I don't know.
So there wasn't like a caravan or a line of vehicles behind the black BMW when you stopped the BMW?
No.
Can you describe for us a little bit about what the area was like on the night of September 7th, 1996?
It was a pretty average night for the Strip as far as the amount of traffic flowing and things like that. Not particularly crowded or packed or anything like that. The area we stopped in had some lighting, but it wasn't like right in front of a hotel or something that cast a lot of lighting on the area or anything like that.
Dankeschön.
I see.
You know, nothing out of the ordinary.
So there was nothing out of the ordinary as to that particular date and time in terms of any special events going on in Las Vegas at that particular time?
I'm sorry, there was always something going on the Strip, so I heard that things were going on that night, but I wasn't really aware of them.
Were you ever aware that on that particular night there was a championship boxing match between Mike Tyson and Bruce Seldon that was being held at the MGM?
Yes.
All right. And I would venture to say that would be something that would have been briefed to all the police officers prior to you going on your shift for that night.
No, we didn't really talk about it.
All right. And then with regards to the amount of traffic, you're saying that even though this championship fight had taken place, in your opinion, there wasn't a lot of traffic on the strip.
Not more than ordinary.
Okay.
Paul
And
Paulus,
when you say
Dankeschön.
not more than ordinary, can you describe for us what that means exactly?
So the strip is always pretty crowded, or was at that time. So, that's why they had us out there on bicycles. It's because we could get in between in and out of cars. So I guess when we conducted the car stop, there was enough traffic that we felt comfortable that he was going to have to stop and pull over, that he wouldn't be able to just take off on us.
Right.
And that's the best description I have. That's why we rode bikes out there. So, but there was always traffic in that area. It's always congested over there.
Okay, and that's probably the best way to put it, right? It's still congested for Las Vegas,
Yes.
but it's normal for Las Vegas to
Yes.
be congested.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it wasn't like, for instance, I don't know if you were around Las Vegas in 2020 when you could just take your bicycle and just ride down Las Vegas Boulevard with like no one around, right? It's not
Der
that bad.
Prozess, der Tag 1 läuft immer noch, nur zur Info, ne? Also der Livestream läuft immer noch, Leute. Wir probieren jetzt nur die ganzen Pausen zu überspringen. Dann werden wir
Now, in addition to that,
im Live-Geschehen landen, nur so zur Info, ne? Wir holen das nur nach jetzt.
Ich
habe gerade nachgeguckt.
Yes.
Being transported to the hospital.
Yes.
And the hospital you were going to was UMC.
It was UMC.
Okay. Now, when a police officer first arrives on scene, is that police officer considered to be the primary officer until such time as they are relieved of that duty?
Ordinarily, yes.
Were you the primary officer at that particular scene? Were you the first officer on arrival?
I don't really remember. There were so many of us that showed up like at right around the same time. There's just a lot of officers showed up there pretty quickly.
Right. Now, I mean, you have a pretty clear memory of this. Did you review any records or have any meetings with the district attorney's office prior to your testimony here today?
Yes, I did. I reviewed the records.
Okay. And once again, you do that so it'll help you refresh your recollection as to what occurred 30 years ago.
Yes.
Okay. Even though this might be something that's unusual, right? You have a celebrity who's shot on the strip, you still have to refresh your recollection in order for you to remember things.
Some of it, yes.
Yeah. And once again, you're doing that so you make sure that for this jury that you're accurate about what you recall 30 years ago.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in addition to that, you were shown a map, and I'm going to show you again here. This is State's Exhibit number 1. See this?
Wartet, Leute.
Okay, can you tell me, this map, do you know if this map was the actual map in 1996 of the Las Vegas area?
No.
You're smiling.
It's just a long time ago. It changes so much down there.
Yeah. So we know that this is a map of Las Vegas.
Yes.
But you cannot tell us, for instance, if this is 1996.
No, I cannot tell you.
Okay. So, for instance, on the top over here, this doesn't look like the sphere, does it? Does it?
Ich will gerne gucken, ob wir noch einen Live-Counter einbauen können.
And then down over here, does this look like T-Mobile or anything like that, as far as you can tell?
Aber ich glaube, noch genauer geht es nicht.
No.
Okay. Now, and once again, I just want to make sure I'm clear for the jury. This particular map, as it sits here right now, as it's here, for instance, we have what looks like down here at the bottom. I'm pointing where the MGM label is right here. Do these look like walk bridges over the streets?
I can't really tell.
Let me just scroll here real quick. Does that help you?
Yeah, they do look like walkways.
And fair to say that those walk bridges in 1996, people were still walking on the streets, crossing like
Genauer geht es nicht.
crosswalks, right?
I'm trying to recall. I couldn't.
Wir brauchen 100.000 Abonnenten, liebe
I
Leute.
remember them taking
Gibt Gas.
the crosswalks out and putting those walkways in.
Right.
I remember when they did that, but I don't remember the year they did it.
And once again, I'm not trying to. It's not a catch-a moment.
No, I
I'm not trying
understand.
to get you in
Yeah, I
trouble.
understand what you're saying. I don't want to say something that I can't be sure of, but I remember when I was down there working, they no longer allow traffic to cross on foot across the strip because of all of the accidents that we had. So they put those walkways in when I was still working.
Right. Okay. Now, and just finally here, with regards to the when you're riding on the strip and you're riding with with the other person that's with you, you said at some point you were made aware that there was a shooting that had occurred, and the radio traffic indicated that the vehicle you had stopped was potentially the vehicle that was being involved. Remember that line of questioning?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us just really quickly here, based upon State's Exhibit number 1, and once again, we're not looking at it in terms of an accurate 1996 view, but just in terms of the streets. Can you tell us where you were at when you took off to wherever the vehicle was? And I'll just pull that here real quick so you can.
Thank you.
Sure.
I couldn't really tell you where we were because my memory serves me, it was called out right around the same time as we were rolling up on that vehicle.
Okay.
There was shots fired call and vehicles involved, and then we rolled up and saw that vehicle in the middle of Harmon.
And when you rolled up and you saw the vehicle, can you tell us other vehicles that were behind that vehicle? Were there any other vehicles in an entourage behind the black vehicle?
There were several vehicles stopped all over the strip. It was cluttered with cars. So
Guck mal, Leute, die Sache ist die mit den Übersetzungen, gell? Guck mal. Ich verstehe, dass viele Leute Englisch können. Ja? Ich verstehe auch sehr, sehr viel. Nicht alles Slang und so mäßig, ich kapiere nicht alles, aber das meiste verstehe ich. Aber ihr müsst verstehen, es gibt halt, wir sind 75.000 Leute, ne? Aktuell, hier auf YouTube, bei unserem Kanal, in der Community. Ich kann nicht verlangen, dass jeder das kann, und ich sage euch ganz ehrlich, ich gucke mir lieber deutsche Sachen an, die deutsch synchronisiert sind oder so. Es ist für mich angenehmer zuzuhören. Ich denke auch und träume auch in Deutsch und nicht in Englisch. Versteht ihr? Das ist für mich angenehmer. Muttersprache sozusagen. Deswegen, aber ja. Nicht jeder versteht es. Muss man auch verstehen, liebe Leute.
Yes, Your Honor, State calls Ingrid Stokes.
Kifidi.
Yes.
Gerechtigkeit für Tupac Shakur, liebe Leute. Gerechtigkeit. Er wollte Gangster sein, er ist ein Gangster. Jetzt musst du auch genau wie ein Gangster das Ganze hinnehmen. Ein Gangster, der zu viel geplaudert hat. Tja, in seinen Interviews, der cool sein wollte. Oh, jetzt zuhören. Zuhören, Leute.
Ingrid Stokes, INGRIDSTOKES.
Thank you, ma'am. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Paul, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Stokes.
Good morning.
Back in 1996, did you have a different last name?
It was Johnson.
Okay, so you went by Ingrid Johnson back then? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Did you come to Las Vegas on the weekend of September 7th, 1996?
Yes.
Who'd you come with?
My best friend and some girlfriends.
Okay, can you tell me who they were?
Shalane, Tanisha, and Lauren.
And why'd you come to Las Vegas that weekend?
Well, when you live in LA, you go to Vegas all the time. It's just a party city. So we decided to go for the weekend. We were all off work. And so we went to come hang out, have fun.
And were you aware, and well, first let me take a step back. So you guys were living in LA at the time?
Yes.
What part of LA?
I may have been living at my dad's, which is Carson.
Okay. And then and you came out for the purposes to party. Were you aware that there was a Mike Tyson fight that weekend?
Yes, that's one of the reasons. There was always a Mike Tyson fight. But we were coming because my friend knew one of the managers or coaches, I forget what they're called, and we had planned on going to the fight.
Did you end up going to the fight?
No.
What happened?
4 women in a bathroom did not work. We took too long. We missed the fight completely.
And so, where were you staying that night?
I believe we were at the Lexor, or the Rio, but I think it was the Lexor.
Okay. And then, did you ever actually make it to the MGM where the fight was?
We made it to the let out, is what I call it, because the fight was already over, so everyone was kind of hanging out. So we went to see what was going on for the night.
And did you hang out there for a while?
I don't remember, but it would have been enough time to run into a few friends and say hello and hang out, and maybe drink or two, maybe.
So, what did you do after hanging out at the MGM Grand?
Well, we had met one of my friends, and they had mentioned there was somewhere they were going to go. So we decided, okay, we'll go there first and see what's happening before we decide, where we're going to end the night. So we all got back in our car, the rented car we took from LA, and drove.
And do you recall what kind of car that was?
It was a convertible Supreme.
And did all four of you go into the car?
Yes, all four of us were in the car.
And what happened once you guys started driving?
That's a loaded question. A lot happened. We got in the car. I believe we left the MGM parking lot, and then we went to the main street, Las Vegas Boulevard, I guess. And we were driving, and I believe we were, I don't know, about 10 minutes after leaving the parking lot, and then we ran into Suge and Tupac in the car.
And when you say you ran into them, what'd that look like?
Well, we were driving, hanging out in a convertible, and my girlfriend Lauren at the time, she knew Suge, and she told us, "Hey, there's Suge. Pull up next to him. I'm gonna ask them what they're doing." And so Shalane was the driver, and she slowed up close to them.
And so you said Shalane was the driver.
Yes.
Where were you seated?
I was a passenger in front.
In the front passenger? So Shalane's driving, you're in the front passenger, and the other two women are in the back seat?
Yeah, Tanisha's behind me, and then Lauren is behind the driver.
After all these years, you still remember that, huh?
Well, yeah. Some things you don't forget. That one you forget.
And so then when you start driving, or when you see Suge, and your friend starts talking to Suge, what happens?
They were talking, and she was like, "What's going on? What's happening?" We look over initially, we pull up to the car, and we kind of nod or say hello, that kind of thing. But we were in our own little world. While she was talking to him, he said, "Hey, we're all going to the club. Why don't you follow us? Get behind us. You can go with us." And so that was decided we'll go there first and see what's happening before we go anywhere else.
So do you follow, do you remember who's driving and who's in the passenger side?
Suge was driving, and Tupac was in the passenger seat.
All right. We believe States Exhibit 3 has already been admitted. We're going to publish that. Is this kind of the way they look at night?
Yeah, that was just like this.
And so, you decided to follow Suge and Tupac to the club?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
That's okay. And so, do you recall the name of that club?
It was an area code, so I remember it was 662 or 702, but now I know it's 662.
And then what did you do? Did you guys start driving over to Club
662? We got behind them, and we start driving down the Las Vegas Strip. And it was weird because there was a car behind us, and they kept going around us trying to get in front of us. It happened quite often. It was really annoying. We didn't understand what was going on. And then at one point, we were getting ready to turn to go on the main street. I guess Flamingo was on. Or Flamingo, I think is what it's called. When we turned that way, I was like, what the heck's going on? People keep getting in front of us. I know how to get to the club. Let's figure out our own way. I can drive and we can meet them up there. And so our plan was to get out from behind them.
So you were confused about the way the cars were moving?
Yeah, I didn't understand. In hindsight, I know now, but I didn't understand there was entourage. I just thought, they were going to the club. We didn't think about it.
And then at some point on Flamingo, do you stop at a light?
Yeah, so when we get close to the light, I tell Shalane, pull over, I'll drive. I know where I'm going. I've been there before. So we pull from around them, and then we stop at the light, and
before, that's my fault, not yours. So before, when you guys are stopped at the light, where is your car relative to Suge Knight's and Tupac Shakur's car?
So I believe there was 4 lanes, a turning lane, the lane next to it, the middle, and then there's one for outside lane. So they were on the 3rd lane, I believe, and when we got off the lane behind them, we got out and we went past, and I think we were a car or two on the 2nd lane from the light.
And so were you behind or in front of Suge Knight's car?
We were in front.
So you're in the lane next over, a car, or maybe 2 in front.
Yeah, exactly.
Then,
Groovy.
While you're waiting at that light, does anything happen?
Well, me and Shalane were going to change seats. I was going to drive. I'm the more aggressive driver, and after what, she was nervous with them coming back in front of us so much. So me and Shalane were literally head down, taking our seatbelts off when we heard the gunshots, when it's all hell broke loose.
And to be fair, you didn't see those gunshots.
No.
And then what do you do when you hear the gunshots?
I freak out and I scream, what the hell? I said, what the hell? And then Shalane is kind of half up, half down, and so I grab her head to bring her down. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And then she has her hand on the wheel, but she's like frozen. And so I don't remember how many gunshots there were, honestly. But I know I put the car in drive, and I told her to get the hell out of there and drive. And so I may even grab the wheel. Like I said, I'm very aggressive. And from that, she tried to drive off.
And then did you see the color of the vehicle?
Yeah, so we almost hit the car. When we were trying to drive off, there was a car in the lane, that last lane, that was the turning lane. And it was a white four-door. Can't tell you what kind, but I just know it was like white-ish. And we almost hit it when we were trying to get away.
Were you trying to pursue the white car?
Hell no. Just want to get away.
And then where did you guys go? Did you turn off? Did you follow them turning off? Or
we turned off. We turned the only way you could turn because it was a red light, which was down that first street past. And then when we turned right, we were just driving fast. There still might have been gunshots. I can't speak for anyone else in the car, but it was a lot going on. There was a lot of adrenaline. And then the first street we saw that was on the left, I was like, turn left. And we just turned down a random street that had like apartments on it.
Yeah. So now, again, yeah.
Did you, it's fair to say you didn't see who was in the car, right?
No, didn't look.
But did you go back to where the shooting occurred?
Yes, I did.
Were you nervous about talking about what happened?
I didn't think I had anything valuable to say, to be honest. So I wasn't nervous initially because I just was like, we came back because when we wanted to know what happened. Because we left, so we didn't know. We didn't look around. We didn't see anything. We just left. And so when we came back, we saw there were a lot of police presence. And I wasn't a big fan of the police at the time, so it wasn't like I wanted to stop and talk to them and offer my help. But I also wanted to make sure if I could help, I would help. So when we went back, we told the officers we had been there when something happened, what happened when we left. And so he made us stop the car and get out the car. The police officer made us sit on the ground, on the sidewalk, in front of everything. Like cars are still, I think, may have been passing. So it was kind of an odd situation where they were like kind of rude to us. And then they're treating us like we're suspects. We really didn't know what happened though. And so.
Gute Nacht an alle, die schlafen gehen. Noxares, was geht?
Downtown or in a van for you guys to come and had us sit there. I kept asking a lot of questions, but no answers.
Gute Nacht an alle.
I noticed some of your friends aren't going to be here. Is there this fear about talking in this kind of case?
Absolutely, yes.
Why is that?
Snitches get dishes. I'm saying.
Snitches in the business?
Talking to police is not a thing we do in our culture anyway in LA. It's not a normal thing. So there was that, especially in the 90s and 80s. There was multiple reasons why. But I didn't see anything, so I was kind of limbo. I didn't see anything. I didn't think I'd be beneficial.
Wir dürfen nicht vergessen, Gerd, es ist sehr, sehr lange her, dass sie überhaupt noch so das detailliert beschreiben kann. Respekt muss man trotzdem sagen, auch wenn sie hier nicht großartig eine Rolle spielt gerade.
I may have heard the number of gunshots. I may have had, more. But the police treat us so bad that we start shutting down because we're like, if someone did it, they could come by and sitting on the ground. They can see we're sitting here telling people, even though we're not saying anything. So this was a really bad situation.
And is it fair to say that was something that also would scare
Wie lange
you
bleibst du
that
live?
somebody was seeing you talk?
Absolutely.
Objection, Your Honor, is the leading.
What's your response, Mr. Paul?
I'm just following up on your question. And then she's running the foundation too.
I'll sustain if you could rephrase.
Ich bleibe so lange live, wie ihr wollt, solange ihr noch am Start seid. Wenn ihr nicht mehr da seid, bin ich auch schlafen.
That you are concerned about people seeing you talking to police.
Yes.
All right. No further questions, please.
Cross-examination, Mr. Sam.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hi, Mr. Obviously, I would imagine you've never testified before.
Ihr dürft nicht vergessen, Leute, ne? Auch wenn sie hier nicht so krasse Details sagen kann, wer im Auto jetzt saß, wer da geschossen hat oder so. Jeder, der noch dabei war, und aussagen kann, ist
Not except outside
wichtig
the door
bei dieser Sache.
to the courthouse. I mean, the door of the grand jury.
I see. And with regards to that testimony, did you review any documents, records, anything like that in preparation for your testimony in front of the grand jury?
No.
All right. Now, asking you again for today, did you review any documents in preparation for your testimony here in front of this jury?
I looked at the grand jury testimony that I said, but other than that, no.
Okay. Now, when this thing had occurred, I would imagine it would have been a very traumatic experience for you.
Yes.
And it's
Worum geht es genau? Es geht darum, dass wir hier gerade Prozess angucken, wo es um
Just for the record. When you go back to LA, did you ever just sort of keep on top of it? Like,
irgend so einen Fall geht, keine Ahnung.
from a magazine?
Ich weiß auch nicht mehr, wie dieser Typ hieß. Irgend so ein random Kriminalfall.
Decades. We used to talk about it.
Okay. Now, did you ever at any point capture what you had remembered in a journal or anything like that?
I did a documentary, a couple documentaries. Yes, years, like 20 years later.
I see. And in preparation for those documentaries, what did you use to refresh your recollection back then?
Talk to my girlfriend. I mean, more talk and try to remember pieces that I could.
Right. And your girlfriend was also present in the Sebring when it happened
Yes,
as
she
well?
was driving.
I see.
That is right.
Now, just to describe us a little bit that night, you're driving in a convertible Sebring,
Yes,
and I'd assume that the top was probably down.
the top was down. Yes.
Okay. And the weather that night, was it raining?
No.
Can you describe for the jury what the weather was like that night?
It was Vegas in September. It probably, I mean, I'd be guessing, but I know what it wasn't. It wasn't raining. It could have been a cloud in the sky, but I wouldn't remember that.
Was
I just
it
know
cold?
it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. We didn't have any jackets. We had designer clothes. That's why I was mad. I had to sit on the curb.
Guten Abend.
But no, it was a nice, cool evening. So I would probably say in the 80s, 70s, 80s. I have no idea.
All right. But obviously, among the four girls, no jackets or anything that would...
Ja, guck mal, ihr dürft nicht vergessen, gell, wenn Schüsse fallen, merken sich die wenigsten Leute sogar die Gesichter. Das geht alles so schnell, die probieren sich einfach in Sicherheit zu bringen, schreien automatisch, wenn andere Menschen schreien. Das ist so ein Phänomen, das passiert automatisch. Dass Leute schreien, dass die rennen, Panik. Das geschieht alles so schnell in Sekunden, da realisieren die Leute nicht mehr so viel. Das ist nun mal so. Deswegen ist es schon krass, dass sie so viel überhaupt noch erzählen kann. Nach so einer langen Zeit, Leute. Sogar das Wetter hat sie beschrieben. Wisst ihr, wie ich meine? Ja, es geht um Tupac. Es geht um Tupac Shakur in dem Fall. Ja. Amerika ist sowieso anders, ja.
record, I'm showing you States Exhibit number 1. It's just an overview of Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Does that help you at all?
No, not really. But I see the streets. It's what I thought. I'm assuming the red dot is Vegas Boulevard.
And when you say red dot, there's a mouse that's right there in front of you. You can use that to sort of move that mouse over to where... No, that doesn't do that. 'Cause it's-
I can point it, but
Now, let me do this.
When you're on our computer, can you do that? This doesn't
Ja, sie hat schon geneigt und Tupac gesehen im Auto, ja.
So would this be, and
Yes,
I'm using my
that's-
Sharpie, that's
yes,
the dot?
yes.
Okay, so yes, that would be Las Vegas Boulevard. Now I'm going to point over here. Do you recognize this particular area?
yeah, that's where it happened.
Okay, and this, I'm pointing now, once again for the record, Flamingo, and it looks like this would be Koval.
Koval, that sounds about right.
Now, you were describing for us a little bit about where the cars were. If I were to give you a piece of paper, can you draw it for us just a little bit better so we can have a better view? And
I can try.
Okay. You want to may approach?
Yes, you may.
Ifidi. Schönen Schnurrbart hast du.
And what am I drawing exactly again?
If you can draw for us where on that map, where Koval was. And just for the record, you're writing Koval. Is it for the horizontal line or the vertical line?
It is the horizontal line.
Okay. So that's Koval. And then can you draw for us where...
Noxares, Dankeschön für deinen Mega-Support. Dankeschön für
We were
11,99.
behind
Vielen,
it.
vielen Dank.
So it would have been
Liebe, vielen, vielen Dank,
like lanes
Bro.
and like don't quote me. I could be off by one, of course. So I'll say this was Shug, and we were behind, so this was, I'm going to put I for me. And then we moved and went right here, so this is
Die
where
Frau
we
kommt mir
ended
sehr
up.
ehrlich vor, auch, ja,
I'm
ja.
not parking, but
Christine,
stopping
ja, ja.
at the red light.
That's fine. And just for the record, you have made a mark that looks like an S, and I would assume that would be for Shug's vehicle.
Yes,
And then there's another I, it looks like right there, and that would be for your vehicle.
yes,
And then you have an arrow pointing to the next lane over where the I is now at.
yes, that's where it ended.
Okay, great. And then when the shots, when you're,
Mein Handy gerade
I guess,
vibriert?
trying to change seats, can you tell us where you were
Glaube, nein.
at that particular point?
You mean in the car? Or-
Well, not in the car, but
Oh.
where the car was.
It was here when the shots happened,
Okay,
and when we were trying to flee, we were trying to get in this lane to go around to get the turn.
I see.
And that's what we ended up doing eventually.
I see. So when the shots were fired, you were still in that I,
The I,
and
yes,
then you pulled off onto Coble.
yes.
Okay. Now this area right here, what is this? What street is that?
What do you mean, this Flamingo? No, is this Flamingo, I'm assuming? I'm guessing, like I said, I'm bad at direction on places I still go today.
That's right.
And then here was like
Nehmt
a
euch schnell einen
gas
Keks.
station or something right there. And then here was where we turned off right, which is where that first left was. So I don't know the name of the streets or anything.
No problem. I'm going to show this. Thank you so much, ma'am. I appreciate it. All right. Your Honor, if I could have this marked as defense exhibit, opposed defense exhibit A,
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
and move for admission.
Any objection to its admission?
Frage an die Leute, die gerade da sind. Sollen wir noch dann später beispielsweise über Einzelheiten davon berichten oder reicht euch das so? Wollt ihr, dass wir detailliert nochmal darüber berichten oder nicht?
Now, show
Über Einzelheiten, die vielleicht wichtig sind,
now is defense exhibit.
weil es nicht jeder mitbekommt. Sagt auf jeden Fall Bescheid, Leute. Schreibt in den Chat, wenn ihr möchtet.
All right. And I will just explain this for the jury again. So where you have Coble is actually the street Coble. Is that right?
Yes.
And you have Flamingo, which would be the other street that's going vertical down the Defense Exhibit A.
Yes.
And then
Okay.
on the corner,
Okay, machen wir.
it would be one of the corners. There's a gas station.
Yes.
Now over here, this S, that would be what you would call a Suge Knight's vehicle.
Yes.
And you were directly behind that vehicle at some point.
Yes.
And you pulled up, and that's the arrow pointing up to the next lane over, and that's where you were at, right next to Suge's vehicle.
In front of, not next to. That's why it's a little above.
I see. So you're slightly in front of Suge's vehicle. Was there another vehicle over here in front of Suge's vehicle?
I'm assuming yes, because we weren't at the front of the line. So yes, maybe two.
I see. Maybe two vehicles, but presuming that there would be at least a vehicle in front of Suge's vehicle.
At least two, I'd say, because there was one in front of me.
Okay. And then this lane over here is, what lane is that?
That's the a small lane that you can turn off.
Turning lane?
Yeah, it didn't say, but yes.
Yeah. And so at some point when the shots were ringing out, you just immediately just gassed the car and made a right-hand turn on Coble.
Yeah, into the turning lane.
Okay. And your testimony here right now, for instance, is that the top was down, but you didn't see...
No,
Yeah.
I was looking down because I was initiating changing my seat. So I would thank God I was all face down.
Okay. And when you pulled off and you made that right-hand turn, did anyone shoot at you?
Probably. I honestly don't know. There was a lot of gunshots.
Sure. Did any, after the event had occurred, did you ever observe any bullet holes in your vehicle?
There was no bullet holes in my building.
Was there any shattered windshield as a result of...
Also nur zur Information, gell, wenn man beispielsweise das Ganze übersetzen würde, der Livestream geht jetzt 6 Stunden von diesem Prozess, gell, und der ist immer noch nicht vorbei, Leute. Das heißt, das Ganze übersetzen ist ein bisschen schwierig, Leute, komplett. Dann bin ich auch pleite auf jeden Fall, ne? Das zum anderen. Aber mal gucken, wie viele Pausen hier auch drin sind.
There was a conversation about going over to Suge's place, but it seemed like everyone was sort of talking. Like it was like the girls in the back seat maybe were having a conversation or something like that.
No. Lauren was the only one talking to Shook because she's the only one who knew him.
I see.
So nobody, we were just like, oh, okay, looking like, because it wasn't our conversation.
Right. And when that was happening, did any of your people in your vehicle yell out, Tupac, anything
No,
like that?
absolutely not.
Oh my gosh, it's Tupac.
No.
Okay. Now, during that time period, as you're over here behind Suge's vehicle or next to it, did you ever see, can you describe for me what Tupac was doing in the vehicle?
When we pulled up on the side of him and she was talking to Suge, he was relaxed, like sitting in the chair, sitting in the passenger seat. And Suge was relaxed talking to Lauren. Nothing, like there was no engagement.
Okay, so as you're sitting there and you pull up, Tupac was not hanging out the window and doing something out of the window?
Absolutely not, no.
Okay.
No.
His torso was not sitting on top of the window yelling to his fans, Tupac, Tupac.
No, there was no fans around. They were just driving in the car listening to music like we were.
All right. And during that time period, when you were here during this time period, there's a red light.
Yes.
Preventing you from moving forward. And
Könnt ihr mir sagen, wo ihr das gesehen habt? Weil Leute schreiben rein, die haben das schon gesehen. Wo habt ihr das denn gesehen, wenn das jetzt gerade live ausgestrahlt wurde? Hä? Ich kapiere es nicht.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, any questions for this witness? You do have one? Okay, so what I'll need you to do is write your juror number on the question and then write the question on a full sheet of paper and then hand it to my marshal when you're done.
Ich raffe nicht ganz, was manche Leute hier reinhauen. Habe ich irgendwas verpasst oder so? Ich bin einfach, selbst die Verwirrung ist verwirrt.
Any questions from anyone else? Okay, perfect.
Welche Zusammenfassung hast du gesehen, ist die Frage. Welche Zusammenfassung? Das würde mich interessieren.
Or express any opinion on any subject connected with the trial until the case is submitted to you. We'll have everyone back here, let's say 1:15, so that everybody has enough time to get everything done over the lunch break. We'll see you guys back at that time. Please rise to the jury.
Guck mal, damit man das versteht. Wenn ich hier auf Live drücke, Leute, wir sind jetzt hier, gell? Bei 4 Stunden noch was. Guckt mal. Seht ihr das? Seht ihr das? Das wird gerade live ausgestrahlt. Tag 1. Oh shit, wo sind wir gewesen? Hier waren wir. Hier.
Express any opinion on any subject connected with the trial until the case is submitted to
Kapiert ihr
you.
jetzt?
We'll have everyone back here, let's say 1:15, so that everybody has enough time to get everything done over the lunch break. We'll see you guys back at that time. Please rise.
Deswegen, wenn die Leute mir sagen, die das schon gesehen haben, Bro, es wird gerade live ausgestrahlt. Wo hast du das gesehen? Zeig mir den Link, gib mir den Link, Bro. Nein, ihr versteht das falsch. Wenn Leute darüber berichtet haben, dann nur das hier, was bisher im Prozess geschehen ist. Kapiert ihr? Vorbei ist es ja noch nicht. Die machen nur die ganze Breaks, die machen Pausen. Deswegen, wie hier, guck. Und in diesen Pausen hier machen diese ganzen YouTuber schnell Berichte darüber, was hier passiert ist. Kapiert ihr das? Das ist das Ding. Und deswegen sage ich ja, wo habt ihr das denn bitte schön gesehen? Eine Zusammenfassung, wenn das Ganze ja noch läuft. Eher Berichte, was die Frau zum Beispiel ausgesagt hat, ne, die wir eben gesehen haben. Und in der Zeichnung, die hat ja auch eine Skizze gemacht und so, das wird alles gezeigt, das weiß ich. Aber an sich läuft das Ganze noch, liebe Leute. So, die haben einen Break gemacht, wann geht es hier weiter? Hier.
Okay, I'm talking normally now.
You know what I mean?
I'm trying to mute, and now I'm trying to talk, and now I'm trying to mute.
Any difference?
Das ist das Ding.
I thought I did.
Ich habe das auch schon bei anderen YouTubern gesehen, dass sie darüber berichtet haben, über die kleinen Teile. Werde ich nochmal auf Deutsch für uns übersetzen, die wichtigsten Sachen. Im Nachhinein. Ich dachte mir, das ist cool, wenn wir gemeinsam hier das Ganze uns anschauen. Ist zwar eine sehr, sehr asoziale Uhrzeit, aber hey, besser als nichts, oder? Ja, ich weiß, Christine, das ist live hier gerade, deswegen weiß ich auch nicht. Aber egal. Kann man nichts machen. Passt schon, passt schon. Wir sind live. So, jetzt wird einer zugeschaltet, Leute. Ich hoffe, die Quali ist gut, wenn er redet. Sehr gut, freut mich. Ich hoffe, sonst euch allen geht's wirklich gut und ihr seid noch ein bisschen fit.
To the party stipulated the process of the jury.
We do.
Okay, you may all be seated. At this time, the state may call their next witness. All right, Mr. Becker, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to have my clerk swear you.
Please raise your right
Yes,
hand.
ma'am.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
May I please have you state and spell your first and last name for the record?
Brent Becker, BRENT BECKER.
Ah,
Thank you.
Oh,
Sir,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you.
werden Sie lügen wie gedruckt?
You're retired these days.
Yes,
Is that correct?
I do.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what'd you do for a living before you retired?
I was a police officer for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department.
And how long what years were you with Metro?
What years were you with Metro?
I was there from 1984 to 2011.
And in September of 1996, what was your assignment?
I was a detective with the homicide section.
Die
Do you
Rückkopplung ist
recall how
gottlos.
long you'd been with homicide when you, in 1996?
I got into homicide, I think it was November of 1994.
Guckt mal auf
Did
KFD.
you have a partner in 96?
Yes, it was Mike Franks,
And who was your sergeant?
Kevin Manning.
Oh, he's gonna, hold on a second, all right, he's gonna work on the echo. Can you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Ganz kurz, für alle, die beispielsweise jetzt erst gesehen haben, dass ich einen Keks angeboten habe, so gern geschehen, aber ihr müsst unten auf Live klicken. Guck mal hier, das ist auch gerade live. Wenn ihr hier auf Live klickt, dann seid ihr quasi aktuell gerade live, so wie ich gerade rede. Weil die Leute, die sich gerade bedanken, die sind weit zurück, gerade im Livestream. Nur damit ihr Bescheid wisst.
On September 7th, or into, I guess, technically into September 8th of 1996, did you get called out for a shooting that happened, well, ultimately determined to be happened at Flamingo and Koval?
Yes, Sergeant Manning called me. It was about 12:30 in the morning, and I was asleep, so it would have been September 8th. And so it was around 12:30. So by the time I got up, got dressed, and got there, it was probably about 1 o'clock in the morning on the 8th.
And when you say you got there, what scene did you go to?
Initially, from what I recall, I went to Harmon in the Boulevard because that's where general assignment and everybody was at to get debriefed on things and get some of the notes. And then, from what I recall, I went over to Flamingo and Koval to kind of look at the scene, but they had some witnesses from the car that supposedly was directly behind Suge Knight and Tupac Shakur back at Harmon and the Boulevard that I needed to interview.
Can we talk a little bit, first of all, Tupac Shakur is still alive on September 8th of 1996, correct?
That's what I was told. He had already been transported. He was not at the scene when I got there.
Is it somewhat unusual for homicide to be involved in a situation where there isn't a deceased victim yet?
That was very unusual, and normally we don't get called out, at least at that time, we didn't get called out unless there was a deceased victim. So it was unusual. I think when we arrived at the scene, we were told that because of the nature of who the victim was, General Assignment wanted us to come out to it.
Let me ask you, we've heard from a first responder today. Back in those days, what was General Assignment? What does that mean?
General Assignment was in essence, the night detectives. They worked swing shift and graveyard shift. So they were the night detectives that if something needed a detective to respond, they were the ones that got called out to the scene.
So they would have been at this scene before you, and then they made a determination along with, I assume, the command staff that homicide should be called out to this investigation.
Correct. Actually, uniformed officers would have been the first people called to the scene of anything. And General Assignment, I'm sure, was monitoring the traffic. So if they had heard the call, they may have been responding, but they would have gone out, assessed the scene, and eventually determined if someone, the type of scene it was and if someone needed to come out to it. And in this case, I guess someone must have called Sergeant Manning because he's the one that called us.
And your partner, Detective Franks, do you recall where he responded to?
I believe he got sent directly to University Medical Center, the hospital, which is where Shakur and I believe Suge Knight got sent to.
And your responsibility, was there also crime scene analysts that were called up to the scene?
Yeah, my initial response was to the scene to start handling things directly at the crime scene, yes.
And then does at some point crime scene analyst Dan Ford show up and document the scene while you're present?
Dan Ford was already there from what I recall. They were called CSAs back then, I believe. Dan Ford would have already been there. Usually CSAs, because CSAs were assigned to each shift. So I'm pretty sure he was that particular shift CSA. He would have already been out there doing whatever he did for the scene, marking it, taking photographs and such.
When you, at the end of sort of both the two scene investigations, so the Harmon and Las Vegas Boulevard, as well as the Flamingo and Koval investigation, essentially, what was the facts you were dealing with?
Well, according to the witnesses that I had interviewed, Frank Alexander, Malcolm Greenidge, Katari Cox, and Yafu Fula, and I'm just doing what I remember the pronunciation was. They were in the car.
Ich sehe leider die Nachrichten von Twitch gar nicht. Das muss ich gerade korrigieren, Leute. Schreibt mal jemand von Twitch irgendeine Nachricht vielleicht? Ich sehe sie, glaube ich, gar nicht hier im Chat. Ich muss es korrigieren. Sorry dafür.
A white Cadillac pulling up alongside Knight's car, and someone inside that white Cadillac opening fire or shooting into the car that Knight and Shakur were at. Their descriptions varied a little bit, but from what I recall, I believe they all said it was a white car and more or less agreed that it was a Cadillac. And there might have been a little bit of a variance between 2 and 4 occupants.
And what direction after the
Dankeschön
shooting
für deine Kanalmitgliedschaft. Pumpchen, Dankeschön.
After the shooting, it would have turned south on Koval. That was at Flamingo and Koval, because the night group was heading eastbound on Flamingo, and the Cadillac would have originally been heading eastbound, but then it turned southbound on Koval.
And the nature of the bullet holes that are in the BMW that's located at Harmon and
Klar
Las
sind wir
Vegas
wach.
Boulevard, all those bullets appear to be coming in from the passenger side of the BMW.
The impact strikes that I saw were all on the right rear passenger door, the right front door, or the right front passenger door. I believe there was some sort of a mark or impact on the windshield. Those were the strikes that you could see. Like, you know, it was you couldn't tell if anything had been a stray of any kind.
So, at your scene, you have bullets being shot from south to north into the passenger side of Shogun Tupac's car, but you have no idea how many actual bullets are fired because you can only see the strikes which are in the car.
Correct. All I can see is what the actual impacts are. That doesn't mean that's how many shots were fired. That's just how many struck the vehicle.
And I think we have another witness who's going to testify to this later, but there are a number of casings, or cartridge cases, expended cartridge cases, that ultimately get collected from the southbound lanes of Flamingo right before Koval. Is that correct?
Yes, without seeing the report, I know that there were fired cartridge cases recovered from the street. I do recall that the number of fired cartridge cases recovered from the street did not match the number of impact strikes on the vehicle, which wouldn't have been surprising considering what traffic probably was on Flamingo on a Saturday night and probably the delay of anybody arriving there, at least from law enforcement.
What happens when, in your experience as a detective, there's a bunch of cartridge cases laying in a busy street and cars driving through? What can happen to those cartridge cases?
Well, especially prior to the uniform officers getting there, cars are driving over them. They're either getting caught within the tread of the tires, or they're getting thrown down the street or thrown into a rain gutter, or, I mean, they could go a lot of different places. We've investigated numerous shootings within streets where you've had fired cartridge cases scattered all over the place. And you never know for sure if you've got all of them, because if something gets caught within a tread of a tire and it doesn't get ejected,
Stellt euch mal vor, Leute.
Or it gets ejected.
Stellt euch mal vor, dass genauso wäre mit Diddy gewesen der Fall. Dass sie das genauso live ausgetragen hätten. Ey, das wäre so krass gewesen, ich sag's euch.
That you found casings have gone into
Schade.
the vehicle that the shooter's shooting from.
Yeah, that would depend on if the shots were fired with the handgun inside the window of the car, or if the handgun was outside of the window. Obviously, if the handgun is outside of the window, there's a higher probability, if it's a semi-automatic pistol.
Bitte Leute, hört auf reinzuschreiben, dass es eine Zusammenfassung gibt. Das Ding läuft noch, ich habe es euch doch gezeigt. Das Ding ist, ich brauche keine Zusammenfassung bis hierhin oder so, das haben wir selber geschaut, Leute. Wir gucken uns das gemeinsam an. Wer gerne was anderes schauen möchte, kann sich was anderes anschauen, aber Zusammenfassung für ein Ding, was noch live ist, was noch läuft, ist unwahrscheinlich. Also die Zusammenfassung will ich nicht sehen.
Forward here, do you have those casings forensically tested?
The firearms examiner ends up testing them. I believe they were able to determine that they thought a Glock, it was going to be a 40 caliber. They were able to determine the caliber. And I believe, because I guess I'm not the expert, the firearms people are, but that a Glock has a particular marking that shows up, and I believe they determined that they thought it was a Glock that fired the weapon, that fired the cartridge cases.
So now you're looking for a white Cadillac occupied somewhere between 2 and 4 times, heading south on Koval, and a Glock 40 caliber firearm.
That was the information we had eventually at the time, yes.
After speaking to the witnesses, did you have any suspect information?
The only thing we had was 2 to 4 people, probably already all black males. The shooter, all we had was a black arm. There was a question of whether it was out the driver's door window or out the back window. There was a lot of questions. And this was strictly coming from the 4 gentlemen, Alexander, Greenidge, Cox, and Fula, from the car that was behind them. You got to realize, as I learned later, there was an entire convoy or entourage, whatever you want to call it, that had been behind them. And none of those people were around. Everybody had skedaddled before we got there, or at least by the time I got there. And so the only information we had was what General Assignment had acquired from, I believe, a couple of witnesses that they had talked to and some of the people at the scene.
Guck mal, Leute, das Ding ist, ja, da kann jetzt nicht unbedingt jetzt Licht ins Dunkel bringen. Aber das ist auch kein Wunder, Leute, ne? Wie gesagt, die haben das alles zu lange verstreichen lassen. Das ist ganz normal, Leute. Ich wundere mich, dass überhaupt die Leute so detailliert aussagen können, dass sie noch etwas wiedergeben können von dieser Zeit, ne? Und das ist nicht einfach, wie gesagt. Deswegen, für jede Kleinigkeit ist man eigentlich dankbar, ne? Da ist klar, dass so eine Aussage jetzt nicht die Erleuchtung ist. Und ja, was soll ich euch sagen?
And
es ist, wie es ist.
Atari Cox were supposed to be part of the Outlaws. I guess it's like the group, the I don't know if you call them the band, but the part of the group that performed with Tupac Shakur.
And those are the only 4 that stuck around by the time you got there and you were able to take statements from.
I believe they were the only 4, plus I know there were a couple other guys that are mentioned in the report. I think Kevin Woods was one of them. And I think they must have got stopped by General Assignment or somebody when Suge Knight had made the U-turn to flee or drive.
Guck mal, eine andere Sache, Leute. Ich sag, ja, man wird wahrscheinlich niemals einen Schützen wirklich identifizieren können. Ihr müsst es mal aus einer anderen Perspektive sehen. Wir haben gerade eine Jury, die das Ganze quasi mitbekommt, die am Ende entscheidet über Kifidi. Die Öffentlichkeit möchte gerne endlich mal nach 30 Jahren, ne, oder 28 Jahren, wie auch immer, gerne endlich mal Gerechtigkeit für eine Person haben. Wir werden auch noch darauf eingehen, Leute, dass Tupac Shakurs Schwester auch noch eine Aussage rausgehauen hat, beziehungsweise irgendwas gesagt hat, habe ich gesehen, nebenbei. Werden wir auch noch abchecken. Die andere Sache ist, Leute, das ist einfach so und wird auch immer so bleiben. Wir waren nicht dabei, wir wissen es nicht. Aber wir können doch rein theoretisch, ne, mit logischem Menschenverstand sagen, okay, es war ein Auto, da waren zum Beispiel 4 Leute drinne und es wurde auf das andere Auto geschossen. So, dann haben wir noch einen einzigen, der überlebt hat bis heute, der quasi in dem Vorfall dabei gewesen sein soll, der aber heute sagt, er war nicht dabei, hat aber Aussagen die ganze Zeit getroffen, hat ein Buch geschrieben, hat Interviews gegeben, unzählige. Also was genau wollt ihr dann noch großartig von irgendwelchen Menschen hören? Versteht ihr, was ich meine? Also die machen jetzt denjenigen dingfest, der noch da ist, der noch vorhanden ist, Leute. Davor haben die das ja versäumt, die ganzen Jahre komischerweise was zu unternehmen. Jetzt nach 28 oder 30 Jahren kommen die auf die Idee, ja, jetzt hat er genug Interviews gegeben, jetzt haben wir genug Infos, alles klar, jetzt machen wir den dingfest, wir verhaften den und dann, ja, wir machen den Prozess. Also überlegt mal selber, Leute, ne? Überlegt mal selber. Das ist eigentlich eine ganz simple Sache. Die werden den jetzt auf jeden Fall dahin hängen, Leute. Das ist wie früher im Mittelalter. Die brauchen einen Schuldigen, die werden den hängen. Der wird 20 Jahre plus bekommen. Was da weiter, also wie viele Jahre der bekommt, der weiß es ja selber, deswegen guckt er ja die ganze Zeit so grimmig. Ob er jetzt 10 Jahre oder 20 Jahre bekommt, der hat schon damit abgeschlossen, Leute. Das sage ich euch. Das ist das Ding, wieso er auch so ganz komische Dinge gebracht hat. Von Anfang an, ne? Aber ja, was soll ich sagen? Wir werden ja sehen. Das alles, was sie gerade machen, ist Show, Leute. Das alles, was sie hier gerade machen, ist eine Riesenshow. In Amerika sind die berühmt dafür, dass sie das zu einer Riesenshow machen, Leute. Eine Gerichtsverhandlung ist nichts anderes als eine Show, eine Riesenshow. Für uns alle. Wir schauen uns gerade das an wie so eine Sendung, wie so ein Netflix, wie eine Netflix-Dokumentation oder so. Die erzählen nochmal die gesamte Story. Obwohl die meisten das schon kennen. Trotzdem. Eine Jury, die unbefangen ist, möglichst unbefangen ist, die das Ganze nochmal erklärt. Mich würde sehr wundern, ich weiß, Puffy wurde schon erwähnt, Diddy wurde schon erwähnt, aber mich würde sehr, sehr wundern, Leute, wenn hier wirklich irgendwas anderes noch bei rauskommt, außer dass er seine Strafe bekommt. Kann ich mir beim besten Willen nicht vorstellen, Leute. Aber gut. Ich weiß auch nicht, ne? Wir werden es ja erleben, Leute.
What were your impressions from that interview?
Suge Knight was not the Suge Knight I expected. Everything, we had done a lot of research in the short time we had been involved, and Suge Knight was not a very timid person in the previous interviews we had seen of him. He was a very boisterous, in charge kind of guy. He was very timid, and to us, his interview was very practiced, and he was very timid, and I thought he lied to us. He just didn't know anything.
Your impression was he was withholding information about what happened.
Was auch sehr wild ist, Leute, gell? Wie ihr schon geschrieben habt. Er meint ein Buch geschrieben zu haben oder sich schreiben gelassen zu haben, aber gleichzeitig weiß er nichts von dem Buch, hat er gesagt. Ne? Ihr müsst mal überlegen, wie glaubwürdig dieser Typ ist, gleich null. Ne? Er hat in der Vergangenheit so viel erzählt, Puffy hätte da Geld bezahlt und so weiter. Und auch über das simple, so plumpen Dinge wie ein Buch hat er einfach gelogen. Der sagt, nee, keine Ahnung, was da geschrieben wurde. Der Typ hat es geschrieben, keine Ahnung, was für ein Buch, hat aber das Geld kassiert. Und hat selber dafür geworben. Er hat selber dafür Werbung gemacht für sein eigenes Buch. Also, von was sprechen wir überhaupt? Der ist schon hart. Der ist wirklich knallhart am Lügen, eiskalt. Und das wird ihm zu Verhängnis, Leute. Deswegen hoffe ich, dass die so schalten und diese ganzen Leute, die er erwähnt hatte in der Vergangenheit, einzuladen, ganz ehrlich. Jeden hier vorladen. Suge Knight, Puff Diddy, alle einladen.
Other people within the homicide section.
So würde ich es machen.
You got to realize there are people higher up than us, but eventually Tim Brennan from Compton PD, I think a Mike Collette, and Fontenot, something like that from Los Angeles County Sheriffs came down to exchange information, and that's when we showed them the videotape from the MGM.
And once you showed them the videotape from the MGM, were they able to identify for you, first of all, who Orlando was?
They immediately recognized Orlando Anderson. They told us that's Orlando Anderson.
And do they also identify some of the people that are with Suge that you didn't know might have been with Suge?
They recognized Suge Knight. I think they did by monikers, if I remember right. There might have been names. I think Buntry was in the picture, a guy named Buntry. There may have been some others that would have, again, it would be on the report because we did document all this.
Does Trayvon Lane sound familiar to you?
Yes, Trayvon Lane does sound familiar.
What about Neckbone?
They ended up identifying a bunch of people because we ended up getting a substantial amount of information from them.
does there come a point in time when they let you know that basically there's something happening in Compton that might be really indicative of who may have killed Tupac?
Well, we learned that they had had a series of shootings occurring in Compton, and we're getting a lot of information from informants that was interesting to us. The problem was it was all from informants. We didn't have any actual people that would come forward and testify. So it was information we could use, but we didn't have any witnesses that would be willing to talk to us. It was all hearsay for us.
And before I get too far into the time you go to Compton the first time, were you able to identify that Suge Knight, Tupac Shakur, and their entourage was staying at the Luxor?
Well, yeah, we knew that after the beatdown at the MGM, they had all gone because the MGM security had videotaped or filmed the group going through the casino and exiting, and we got information that they went over to the Luxor where they had rooms, because we observed or saw some videotape down in the valet area after they had changed clothes and were meeting down there for some vehicles where they had left to go to Suge Knight's house there in Las Vegas.
Judge, I have in my hand a certified record from Luxor of the reservations as 124. I'd offer it.
No objection, Honor.
So admitted?
So you mentioned something that I guess I should get to.
Stille Post.
Suge and Tupac's group leave the MGM, go to the Luxor, and then
Er hat gefragt, ob noch was in der Küche übrig geblieben ist, was er noch später mitnehmen kann.
outside, not for this purpose, but did you have law enforcement working security near Suge Knight's house here in Las Vegas?
We did not. Homicide did not. Apparently, there was an off-duty assignment at Suge Knight's community. I guess it's a gated community is where his house was at. And they were working off-duty because of whatever the event was.
And so, did you learn that after the Luxor, they went over to Suge's house?
Yes, we learned that they went over there. There was, I think, a gate log or something, and we learned that several people had gone over there, gone inside, and we eventually acquired that gate log. And then sometime after they had arrived at the house there, they departed, and
That's when the incident occurs.
that's not long after that is when the incident occurred.
So, ihr Lieben, wir haben jetzt knapp 2 Uhr in einer Minute. Wenn ich noch Videos machen soll für später, Leute, dann muss ich jetzt schlafen gehen, weil ich habe gesehen, sehr, sehr viele Sachen sind rausgekommen und ich muss sehr viele Sachen übersetzen. Wir waren jetzt 2 Stunden, 23 Minuten online, live. Ganz spontan, Leute. Wir sind auch morgen wieder live. Ich probiere jetzt, den gesamten Prozess live zu kommen, Leute. Es kann halt sehr spät werden, leider. Aber nicht weinen. Ich weiß. Aber sonst schaffe ich es doch nicht. Sonst haue ich die Videos später nicht raus. Das ist das Problem. Was für einen Eindruck der Typ für mich macht. Meinst du den hier? Den Cop? Der ist ganz gelassen cool. Den, ja, was soll ich dazu sagen, Leute? Ich glaube, der hat schon abgeschlossen mit allem. Denke ich jedenfalls. Ich wünsche euch allen eine gute Nacht, Leute. Ich werde jetzt weiterhin Videos aufnehmen für euch später. Ich denke, ich tue so gegen 7 Uhr oder so. 7 Uhr, 8 Uhr, 9 Uhr. Wann soll ich die Videos releasen? Irgendwie so um diese Uhrzeit. Werdet ihr schon mitbekommen, liebe Leute. Ihr seid die allerbesten. Dankeschön fürs Zuschauen. Ja, sagt auch gerne euren Freunden Bescheid, wer Interesse an sowas hat, damit wir die 100.000 Abonnenten knacken, liebe Leute. Ich danke jeden Einzelnen, der hier dabei war. Ihr seid die allerbesten und haut rein. Gut.